like, what are they looking at?
Right.
Evening, Harvey.
Good evening. We didn't even catch it. It's okay.
He's just getting up.
Yeah, you're getting ready to.
I didn't think Harvey slept. I think he just always wasn't.
Can I see that? I just want to look at the agenda real quick.
Here, I'm
Are we still doing? Tim and
moving
Harvey are still
Paul.
coming, right?
Yeah. That's what you usually say.
Is the boss gonna be here today, Harvey?
How do I measure success?
On any particular one, or you just?
I think you should read through them. Yeah. That's what I'm looking for.
Oh, shit, we gotta make a motion to, what was that? I can't even remember now.
Carl.
I know, but are we removing? We're just removing
removing
them?
it all together. Amend the agenda to remove item. I don't have a printed packet today. Can we print the packet off for me real quick?
Yep, I got you. I'll go to it.
Thank you.
No problem.
What are you talking about that?
The regular packet? That's, what are you talking about?
That's the one you can't, the special meeting that you can't.
Yeah, it's not opening up while I was sitting here trying, that's why I was trying to pull it up with Sean.
Outdated,
handed it to me.
outdated phone.
It's a brand new phone. I just got it Monday last week. I didn't fish this weekend.
So you didn't get another one?
I got a new, yeah, I didn't have to.
You gotta get a
another
new one every
this
time you go
week.
fishing? That's a problem.
Josh said he was going out, but he didn't end up going out. My other buddies went up and fished, and they only caught 3 fish. It was too nice of a day.
Supposed to
Yeah.
get.
The first day.
Yeah, I didn't talk to Josh, but I was gonna ask him.
It's supposed to get ugly tomorrow night, huh?
Oh, man.
Amen to
It's
that.
gonna go up.
Wednesday night.
I think
Supposed
it's
to start raining
It's gonna start
tomorrow.
Tuesday
Yeah,
night?
Starts Tuesday night.
Tuesday to Thursday.
Morning or
At 10
evening?
o'clock tomorrow to 8 o'clock Thursday is
Yeah.
the
like a
something
sleep,
weather
then it's
thing.
gonna freeze, and then the snowfall starts coming.
And then the wind starts.
10 plus
And then
inches
the
and then-
polar.
Are you
Oh, the
guys
dip in the
going-
temperature.
The dip in temperature happens this weekend.
So it's like the
you going-
trifecta.
It's gonna be ugly, yeah.
So
I'm
the polar
thinking-
plunge is
I'm
this
just gonna-
Saturday at Watermark. Are you guys going to that? It says dangerously low wind chill. I'm like, oh.
They picked a good day for it, didn't they?
Yeah.
Are you jumping?
Huh? No,
No?
heck no.
That's
I don't jump in ice cold water.
I watched Harvey jump into it 2
My
years
heart
ago.
would
That's
stop.
right.
Are you gonna go?
Yeah.
Does Harvey,
Never
Harvey
even
jumped
thought
in
about
last year,
Oh,
did
you
he?
I
should
thought
go.
he did.
You can ride with me.
Jumped
go.
it, Bree
What day?
jumped
Or what
it.
time?
Saturday.
What time?
I can get there around noon.
Where'd
Probably.
Harvey go? Bathroom?
And where are they going? Where are they jumping off?
I asked him if the Chief was
They
coming.
just put a
Yeah, a
pool in the
little
middle of the
pool.
street.
Oh.
And then they build a dock and you just jump off into the pool.
Oh, I mean,
It's a fun time. Wear your snow gear. It'll be packed there. Just packed.
they probably shut down the street.
Yeah, they have.
Yeah.
They shut down the road.
Yeah, that's, see, to me, that, you hear me preach about it all the time. That's how
That's
a
what that
brewery
TV's
functions
for.
in a city.
I
Did you
launched-
just, hey Heather, did you just put that TV up so we could look at the,
Yeah.
that's a great idea.
I had lunch with
I was
Chris
wondering what
today,
it's for. I
actually.
thought, is somebody joining us electronically?
That's what I thought too. I was like,
I was
I
like,
think
I like that.
Not what he had, but I think on the, other, you can specify that you go on to the list of his. Yeah, I've already got this. I've got this, I've got ED 14 or whatever you're calling it. So all I need is the ribbons and.
Thank you.
Okay, well, this is, oh, I got one down here. You've got the paperwork that says what he has? Yeah.
Last I knew.
Okay, copy of that.
Expenditures for.
All right, I thought you needed,
I don't know.
I thought you needed it to.
I don't know what happened with that, honestly.
I guess hopefully we save some money there
Took me
then.
like 2.5 years ago.
If we're not, if it's not going out.
You're in a hurry to get this? No, I've got that, so it tells everything.
Hey, Ralph,
All right, yeah.
Wait.
Give me a copy of those.
you fixing your hair?
And we can go through an order.
I didn't think we were gonna see you
And baby
tonight.
stuff is easy to find.
Dan, he's got PTSD from when his hair was there.
Is that what it was?
Yeah.
Did I ever tell you that I ran into a guy that you served with? Yeah. John Burke. John Burke. Just say, he knows you.
The clock's right.
I got 6 o'clock now. Ready? Good evening. Welcome to the special meeting of the Buchanan City Commission, Monday, January 31st at 6 p.m. I'd like to call the meeting to order. Will you join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, please? I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We have roll call, please.
Dennison,
Here.
Whedon,
Here?
Downey,
Here.
Money,
Present.
Swem,
Here.
you have a quorum.
Thank you. We are going to make one small move on the agenda. Would anybody like to make a motion? With a-
Remove item A.
If you would.
I'll motion to remove item A on scheduled matters from the floor. A brief presentation from Carl Bowling.
Is there support?
I'll
This is
support.
money I'll support.
Thank you. Can I have roll call, please?
Whedon,
Yes.
Downey,
Yes.
Money,
Yes.
Swem,
Yes.
Dennison.
Yes.
Approved.
Thank you. Can I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Sean will make
Oh,
said
I'm sorry.
mo-
Approve the agenda. That's,
Agenda?
please.
Okay, I'll make said motion.
Thank you. Is there support?
I'll support.
Thank you. Can we have roll call?
Downey,
Yes.
Money,
Yes.
Swem,
Yes.
Dennison,
Yes.
Whedon.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Now we're going to move on to public comment on agenda items only. If you'd like to make a public comment, please make your way to the podium. State your name and address for the minutes. Ralph? Nothing?
Dan?
Okay.
He's sleeping.
Okay, seeing none, we're going to move on to the consent agenda. Can I get a motion to approve the consent agenda, please?
This is money. I would so move.
Thank you. Is there support?
I'll support.
Thank you. Can I have roll call, please?
Money,
Yes.
Swem,
Yes.
Dennison,
Yes.
Whedon,
Yes.
Downey,
Yes.
approved.
All right, thank you. So we're going to move down to reports by departments. I believe we're going to meet someone.
If I can take this opportunity to come before the commission as well as the public who's here in attendance. We have a new member to our team. I'm really excited and really thrilled to announce that Courtney Hunt's been joining us. She is the new bookkeeper for the city of Buchanan. She is actually hailing from the Lincoln Charter Township, previously serving in their deputy treasurer role. She brings a lot of really great skills and expertise to our team, and I'm just really, really happy she's decided to join us. I hope you'll join me in welcoming her today.
Welcome aboard.
Thank you.
Do they have anybody left up there? or-
No.
I was gonna say, are we gonna be in trouble when Lincoln Township finds out that all their people
I
are
might.
here?
All right, great. Thank you. Okay, moving down to Police Department report from Chief Canis and Sergeant Bennett.
So I wanted to share, part of that report is going to stem off of the conversation that I'm going to share about my goals. So if you guys are okay with it, I'll preface their conversation with jumping into my goals as far as it impacts their department. So to make that prelude to the conversation and report that they're going to share, before you I shared with you 3 main overarching goals. Demonstrate high quality and value in city services,
ensure efficient and effective regulation of activities within the city, and third, create opportunities for prosperity. Now, I've further broken those down into more concise objectives, but in my mind, those were the three I wanted to recommend for our top overarching goals that we should be striving to achieve. And part of that involves obviously making sure that each department of the city is operating to the best of their ability, with high quality services being their goal, but doing that efficiently so that we're getting the best value for our taxpayer dollars. So towards that, and making sure that our departments are in fact achieving the other of our goals, which in my mind, again, includes ensuring efficient and effective regulation of city activities, which is a main component of what the police services does for our community. I wanted to create this chance for our current public safety director, Chief Gaines, to present to the commission a proposal to streamline operations at the City of Buchanan Public Safety Department, so that there would be an opportunity for a more dialed down and focused and concerted effort to review the various different ordinances and regulations currently existing, as well as the need for additional regulations and ordinances. I know that we've all lately been on the same page with wanting to see growth and prosperity for Buchanan, but in order to do that effectively and keep the value and charm of our community, we want to make sure that any growth is managed growth. And if we're going to do something, that we do it well. And part of that means taking your time to analyze and make sure that any regulation we're putting out there meets the needs of what we're going to have both currently and in the future. And same for reviewing existing regulations and ordinances. If they're not currently serving our needs, or we don't anticipate that they'll serve our future needs, we need to get ahead of the game and try to be strategic and try to make those changes now while we can still manage the change and growth of our community. So, Chief Gaines, if you wanted to step up to the podium, if you wouldn't mind. Thank you, sir.
Can I move this? Because
Yeah, sorry, I've
it's
got
like
the
I
TV right
can't
in the way.
see
Yeah.
every.
Yeah,
I
I'd
want
ra-
to make eye contact with everyone. So, good evening, Mayor, Commissioners, citizens. Chief Tim Gaines, thank you for giving me the opportunity to come up here and talk to you. City Manager Grace and myself have had numerous conversations on how we can better serve the community of Buchanan through the public safety and police and fire. So during our conversations, we kind of came up with the roles that I see myself doing and how I would like to see some changes in the public safety. So let's talk a little bit about the operations of public safety. Police department, fire department, as we continue to grow, our public safety departments have to grow with us. Anything that is unchecked is going to be unruly, if you will. We want to make sure that things that we have implemented are being done. The commissioners have asked us to do certain things, and those are things that we need to make sure that these projects are getting done, including future projects. One of the projects that was requested to be done is the fire department, their business fire inspections that we have going on. Great programs, got all kinds of great potential. Unfortunately, as we sent a fireman off to get certified, and then they went and they did inspections, and then they did it another year, we've kind of came to a point where there's no moving forward. We have an old ordinance that does not reflect how this program works. So unfortunately, we've kind of just stalled. Has nothing to do with the fire department or anybody else. We just have to look at how we can change these things and how we can better do these things with getting the correct ordinance, making sure we can deal with people who are in compliance and out of compliance, and how do we do the fines, and how do we do all these things that really wasn't thought about before we started this program. And now we're kind of to the point where we really need to look at those things. Another is the rental inspections, again, with the fire department, not picking on the fire department. We all know how that important that is. I know every time we have a rental fire here, we all talk about, hey, we need to do these things, and I agree on it. The problem is, these are very time-consuming projects that take a lot of leg time to write ordinances, to figure out how we're gonna do this, like with the rentals, with the landlords, and how we're gonna do this, if there's fines, if there's fees, all kinds of stuff that right now we've had these conversations. I saw everyone nod their head, but we haven't gotten off the ground on them. We haven't moved forward on them because we have nobody that really has got the time to do those things. Those are important things to myself, the community, and to the commissioners to move forward on that. Another project that I'm aware of is new street signs. It's not as simple as driving up and down the road and saying that sign's faded and this sign's missing. Basically, what we have to do is a study of every street. What is going on in that street? What kind of signs do I need on that street? Can you park on that street, or is there no parking on that street? Is there school crossing signs on there that we're missing, don't have, that we have to replace? So it's something as simple as replacing signs is just a huge undertaking. Again, who does that? And I'm just mentioning 3 very large projects that I know myself, included with the city managers, the commission, and the citizens, would love to see taken care of. The other thing is writing ordinance. As we go through and we find a lot of times is ordinances are old. They don't affect us. They don't work the way we need them to be. They need to be updated, revised. Some ordinances just need to be written because we don't have any. So those are some large, time-consuming projects that I know all of us want to get going on. And how do we do that? Who's going to do that? Well, as the director of public safety, that falls on my shoulders. But again, that's only half of my title. The other half is chief of police. And as we all know in this community, when you give the chief of police 2 titles, something's got to give. And that's hard, because I don't want to see the police department fail in any way, because we've worked really hard. Those gentlemen over there has helped me get that police department to a level that I want to keep it at and even grow. So how are we going to fix this? What are we going to do to be able to make this happen? There's all kinds of options. There's all kinds of ideas. One of the options that I have is take an existing officer that I have with my department, promote them to chief, allow me to take on these very important roles and do these projects and get them done from the beginning to the end. So with that said, I don't want to see anything fail. I love this city. You guys all know that I'm part of this. I want to make sure that these programs get off the ground. And I'm not sure how we can get them off the ground if I don't step forward and say, I need to do this and get them off the ground. But I don't want to see the police department fail either. A chief of police in these days has a very demanding job. We all know that. So that's where we're at. This is just food for thought. City Manager Grace?
Yeah, so I can add to that. Part of the conversation I've had with Tim centers around, again, being strategic and looking into the long term, as well as the fact that we do currently see and plan to see even more growth in our area. And we want to make sure we're staying ahead of that growth and not allowing, traffic congestion, increased foot traffic, or any of that to spiral into an unmanaged, unruly mess, really, is what we're trying to avoid. We want everything to grow in a way that's consistent with our ideals for our community. And we think the best way to achieve that would be to allow Tim to really encompass the Director of Public Safety role that he already holds, but allow him to fully focus his time and efforts on that full time. And then also promote from within a officer who's very well qualified to serve in the role of chief, and allow that mentorship to occur so that there's a chief that's fully trained before they're sort of thrown to the wolves, as you were. With it being such an important role, we think that that would be an excellent way to achieve that. And we also think we have really capable people who could work together and make that very seamless and very effective for our community.
And I will take any questions that you may have.
How long do you see that transition taking place? If you were to bring someone up from within and mentor them, how long do you think that would need to?
Taking someone from our department that's already have the training and years of experience, that shouldn't take too long at all. And again, that's where that person can do the day-to-day operations, make sure things are running with the department as I step away to do these other major projects.
And another key component from my mind is, again, looking at the value dollar per dollar for our taxpayers. And I really think this is a very efficient use of their tax dollars, because the pay difference that would be involved here, the total net effect on the budget, is actually probably gonna be minimal to a wash, because we really truly believe that we will be able to gain from this, between myself and Tim collaborating together, changes in our ordinances that require less legal fees. And we think that those will make up for the pay difference, because his pay would remain the same under our proposal. And then we would just be having a slight increase in pay for the individual who's promoted, so not a huge difference, not a huge net effect on our budget. And again, with any compensation that we would make back for having less legal expenditures, we think would kind of make a wash in the end, but provide more value for our citizens.
Would you be able to show that to us in paper?
I certainly could. Before we did any
I'm a
budget
visual learner.
projections, yep, I just wanted to make sure the concept was something that sat okay with the commission.
So if we,
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
if we remove an officer to promote him to chief, would we not be replacing that officer in this proposal?
And again, that would be up to City Manager Grace to do that on how the look of the police department is. Can we get away with just doing this? Sure, because of the administrative responsibilities I can pull away from the chief on some of these things, because as of me, just being the chief, those are things that I would have to do. But these projects that I'm taking away, all they would have to do is run the day-to-day operations. They wouldn't have as many administrative
But I
responsibilities.
think what Patrick is asking though, if you take an officer off the force, do you need to replace that person?
Sure.
I mean, we're already
I'm always
losing,
gonna say yes.
Yeah, I was
Yeah.
just gonna say, we're losing Dave.
Yeah.
Ultimately,
just
that
lost-
would be a goal, most likely in a future budget, that we would kind of offset some of that with the, not the marijuana revenues that we get from the state directly, but from some of those permit fees that we get from the marijuana permit applications, because we're legally allowed to use those funds to pay for things that coincide with the regulation of the marijuana industry, which would include, obviously, the police enforcement aspect.
I mean, how does the police force sit right now that Dave retired? Do you find yourself short? Do you find yourself
Sure,
plenty?
because we've lost an officer. So just when we thought we were gonna get a leg up, Dave retired. God bless him for doing that, no problems here. But again, we're back to the numbers that we had. Now we've gotta try to find somebody. Then once we find someone, now we gotta train them. So we're hoping we get someone with a little more experience. We just have to see what kind of applications we get. But we're setting good. We're making our shifts, and can't wait to get another one hired so we can kind of get, again, just a little bit of cushion out there.
So we would need two.
So
Yeah,
no
actually,
decisions being asked tonight necessarily, other than to see if you guys want me to continue with the potential proposal and bring some budget projections
Well, I think if you
forward.
could show us it on paper, what it would look like, that would help me
Right.
personally.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
if we're gonna be talking budget here in the next couple months for the next fiscal year, I think it's safe to assume you add the assumption
Okay.
for us to have as another discussion item at that time.
Certainly, be a great way to approach that.
And from a,
Commissioner
lo-
Money, did you have a question?
Actually, Patrick asked the question
Sure.
that I was looking at. I know we're down one cop. If you're gonna be moving on and we're taking somebody to, use in your role, that means we're gonna be down
Sure. And
and,
timing's everything,
Right.
right? When we started this conversation, we weren't aware that, we were gonna have a retirement. So, those things have to come into play, so I get that.
yeah, I know, I mean, we all know that these guys are strapped at certain times, and, and our concern was, and we've talked about it before, is the downtown area, some of the stuff that goes on downtown. The new guy, and I apologize, I can't remember his name.
Pinsari?
Yes.
Officer Pinsari?
Yeah.
Nick? Yep.
We were hopefully looking at him to be, one of those, that downtown type of guy.
Sure.
So, now we may not have that again for a while, but I have noticed within the last couple of weeks that there's been a lot more police activity downtown. They're doing their jobs.
Sure.
And I think we all appreciate that, I know I do. And, because I've always had accolades for the
Right.
police department, so.
And understand, I would never do anything that's gonna shorten my guys and make
Right.
my officers work twice as hard on anything or be short. So as we move through this, timing is very flexible and, to make this work. So this is just a goal, and this is just something that we thought we would present to you guys tonight, as food for thought of what we can do to make these, projects happen.
No, I like the idea, and I like the fact that you're looking ahead and planning for future growth and trying to do things right the first time. I agree with that statement you made over and over again, so. The only question I have is, who's jumping in the cold water on Saturday?
Well, I believe Harvey, you might not know it yet, but Harvey, Bree, and who else? I know you're.
This is all that
I was gonna say, I thought Amy said
We
something
do
about
have
it.
a few, and Amy, yeah. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
I watched Harvey
You
jump
know,
into
check
it
out
in the
our
past,
Facebook
so.
page, we'll have some video on there, so, it's a great thing, we raise money for the Special Olympics, and, these officers go out there, jump in some cold water, and, raise money. For
Good luck,
the-
Harvey.
The wind chill is supposed to be like dangerously cold
Yeah.
this weekend.
It's gonna be a cold
Good
one.
thing the beer will be cold too.
Yes,
All right.
so, thank you
I
guys.
appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
All right, sorry, I gotta get this thing turned back on so you can see what I'm doing. Okay. Excuse me. I'm gonna move on to unfinished business. Bailey Investments Group and LPO Financial for Honor Credit Union. Consider the request to move $2 million in the city investment account to an indexed annuity with no downside on returns. Does anybody have any comments they want to make on this subject?
Anybody have any questions? I'm an open book. Any concerns?
So I apologize, Tim, but I didn't realize you were coming back down tonight. I haven't had enough time to review it personally myself to make
Okay.
a decision.
Okay.
Any comments or no?
Yeah, I just think I think there's a definitive inquiry from most of the commissioners. I hate to speak for most of you, but I believe it's correct that that we want to get some idea from other parties to see that if the moves that we want to make or that have been presented to us are in line with the ones that you're presenting to us. It's not that we bring your validity into question, but I think that it's that we want to make sure that we make the right decision with $2 million. And I think that's a safe way of putting it, and that's being blatantly honest. And I
Where
hope
was
that.
it, where did you guys have it before, just out of curiosity? What was being done with it before? What was the purpose for this money?
It's been in our general cash management account at Honor, and prior to that, it was over what used to be chemical.
Okay, all right, was it an investment account, correct?
Money,
Yeah.
money management
Okay.
account, yeah.
And so then therefore the purpose is to grow it, to make sure that it's liquid and safe.
Right.
Right. I think, I mean, for my opinion, for what it's worth, part of what we're doing tonight is discussing our goals for the city, and we still have, I think I speak for all of us, we still have some unanswered questions here about millages and how our taxes are currently working. And we have some really large projects ahead of us, which make me nervous when I think of losing some liquidity. And I just don't feel comfortable at this time, personally, I don't want to speak for the rest of the commission, but I don't feel comfortable making this move at this time with the projects that we have. That's how I feel.
I guess, Tim, maybe you can help all of us, and, there's gotta be some explanation as to potential downsides, right? I realize that the explanation that you had presented to us said zero downside, because really the upside is not, I don't have any concern about the upside. If there's upside, we're perfectly okay with that. But what is the potential downside, and what would be a way that you could, not that it's maybe gonna make a difference this evening, but that you could explain to us what maybe help to calm some of our nerves about the potential movement of this money to this account, and then with the individuals, because what was the other company that was involved? Help me remember.
LPL is.
Does it have
The
anything to do with
principal
that
for
email that
kind of-
was sent out or anything like that? I mean, am I answering, so like the question that you have about the liquidity, but you say also downside? I mean,
Right.
I just wanna make sure that I'm answering the right questions.
Right, and maybe I'm not asking the right questions
Right,
either.
so
right
if,
now.
I mean, do you have concern about me as an advisor or?
I don't, no.
LPL is a company, all they do is just, transact business, so all they are is they're just what you call a clearing firm.
Right.
So they don't give advice, they don't do anything like that. They may give advisors advice, but they don't give retail advice or anything like that.
Okay.
Everything has to be held by a bank except, annuities. Those are guaranteed. There's no downside risk, no risk of fraud, no risk of, a company, like if something happened to AIG or American General, you're not gonna lose your money, cause that's separate from, the annuity is separate from anything that's on AIG's books or anything like that. I mean, the only downside that I can really see is that, I don't know, I mean, this is gonna sound very silly, but it's maybe a little too conservative. Again, there's only upside to it. There's no downside to it. I guess the liquidity factor would be the only thing I could think of, in which case you still have the ability to take money out of it, no matter what. It's not lost or held, and they don't hold it hostage or anything like that.
Like you had explained before, right, with the CDs, right, it pretty much locks you in with that CD
Yeah.
and then there's
Right,
no
you might be able to get,
Well, limited distribution.
limited distribution.
yeah, you
right?
get, you have more access than you would a CD.
Okay.
So, my goal basically, I mean, you know where rates are currently, and, we can look at bonds and things like that, but it's not gonna be long before we're paying money to save it. You know what I mean by that is, you put money in a CD, yes, they're gonna be looking at raising rates, but I don't really expect this, but rates are so low, you might as well just keep it under your mattress. This gives the city an opportunity to earn a little bit of money without taking any risk. Again, I have to be very careful in what I suggest that you guys would use, and I wanted to make sure that I use the investment policy available to provide that. So we've got to have the liquidity aspect, which of course we're maintaining most of the money liquid, absolutely liquid. The $2 million has 10% per year that you can take out. But again, fully, there's no risk of loss. I've never really had a phone call. Well, we did this safe thing or safe annuity, and I didn't do as well in the market, or I could have done better in the market. That's kind of a silly conversation for me to use as an example, but I have had it. Someone wants safe there, but I know that all in, most people are, the fear of loss is twice as powerful as the opportunity to gain anything. So that's why I suggested that with this amount of money, we do something very safe.
So how do again, because I still need more time to review what you've sent. So how did the service fees compare to what we're paying today?
Well, I don't think you're paying anything right now.
So-
I think.
So more fees, right?
I'm covering the fees, so you're talking about 0.001%. So that's 1,000th of 1% that you're paying right now, and any fixed costs or any variable costs involved in that, Uncle Whiskers is paying that. So this enables me to provide you the opportunity for growth without taking any risk, and then not have a fee. I mean, looking at getting another officer on board, this would probably help with that. I'd say better chances of that happening where it's at with just the $2 million than keeping it in cash. And there's options that we can use that will help it grow a little bit. Maybe there's 0.5%, maybe there's 75 basis points, maybe something will happen as rates come up. But we want to be careful not to buy into even government bonds that are a little bit longer term, because as rates go up, guess what? Those bond values that you bought are going to go down. Okay? So it's a perfect mix, I think, and balance, trying to make sure that we're doing the right thing, trying to make sure that we're having growth, trying to make sure that we're also providing safety, and even more importantly, liquidity right now. So we need all those things. Did I answer your question? I have a tendency to go off topic sometimes, but the downside risk, I mean, it's silly for me to say again, none. You know, maybe if the market does 5, you get 90% of that. So yeah, I mean, they're gonna do a little bit better than you, but other than that, market goes down, but.
And you had said last time that if we had a negative, it would still be 0%.
Yeah, you won't have any negative, so if the market goes down by 20%, we still
I
have a
guess
principal. And,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I'm sorry, any gains that you make year over year, you also keep those, market goes down, you keep your gain, so that becomes your principal.
Nice.
I guess from my standpoint, I'm not even worried about how this program is set up or who the company is or for you. For me, it has more to do with the fact that we have so many unknowns in our immediate future with huge infrastructure projects. And not having because we haven't had the conversation we're gonna have after this conversation,
Okay.
I have a real problem moving forward with this at this time. And I certainly don't want to inconvenience you or waste your time, and I apologize if it seems like maybe the city has wasted your time. But I would like to make a motion to table this until we've had further budget conversations. Is there some?
I'd support that.
Thank you. Can we have a roll call, please?
Swam,
Yes.
Dennison,
Yes.
Whedon,
Yes.
Downey,
Yes.
Money.
Yes.
Table.
I do appreciate your time.
Hey, no problem,
so
much.
and
Thanks,
it's
Jim.
still public, you can sit.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
great.
absolutely.
Thank you so much.
All right, we're gonna move down to new business, our goal-setting session. And I would just like to say, while this has kind of been promoted as a work session, it is a city meeting. We're trying to conduct city business. I'm gonna try and keep this, kind of laid back and open, but I would ask members of the public to raise their hand if they want to be recognized, if they have something to add, or if they have a question. And we'll get started. Not quite sure where you want to start, Heather.
Well, let us start with getting this back going. It seems to like to go black on me. Just a second. With the admit, everyone, I didn't have a technical difficulty or two with it. So I will just jump right into, if you guys are okay with it, reviewing the strategies that were discussed and forwarded via email by Mayor Dodson. There were top 5 goals, and I'll read them aloud for those in attendance, if they didn't see those. The first is tax review and strategy for future. Look at what millages are in place and when they fall or end, finding an understanding of where we are today with new tax revenue versus where we were 2 to 3 years ago, and where do we expect to be.
Yeah, this isn't working.
Where can we expect to be in the next year or two?
I was gonna say, can you just try turning it on again? Because
That's usually the
There we
fix,
go.
right? Turn it off, turn it back on. It works magically.
computer?
I know it's in the packet because I just read it on your screen. So
It'll be on there in a second. He's got it going again.
I just want to take notes on it.
So I don't know, there we go. There we go. Okay.
So I didn't know if we thought we should take these one at a time, or if you guys want me to
I
go
don't,
through
can,
them all.
I think, can you start over again? Sorry. I think-
Sure, of course. So the first one listed is tax review and strategy for future. Look at what millages are in place, when they fall off or end, and try to get an understanding of where we are today with new tax revenue versus where we were 2 to 3 years ago, and where we can expect to be in the next year or two. So for the second listed goal, Front Street Infrastructure Project, planning of a strategy for through traffic, signage, parking, and how to market all of that to the public in a straightforward, worst-case scenario way. And 3, strategy to make the remainder of key blighted and vacant properties development ready. There are only a few left, but they are extremely important ones, including the Electrovoice building, feed mill site, and River Street property. Fourth stated proposed goal, land redevelopment program for city-owned parcels. It is imperative that we get these properties back on the tax roll. What is the best and fastest way to make that happen in a way that will provide long-lasting benefits to the city? And fifth, continuation of existing/ongoing work. It's important to remember that we have many projects that we are already working on. We should focus on getting a good, solid foundation under us from an operations standpoint, where we have defined roles for everyone at City Hall, DPW, water, and sewer. Get accustomed to the new software and keep moving forward with the economic development efforts already underway.
So if I could explain that last one, just really quickly, because it might seem kind of wishy-washy or weird. Part of what I was thinking under that one, I just think it's important to remember that even though we want to set out new goals, we have to keep doing the day-to-day work that we're currently doing. So that's kind of what I wanted to make sure that we don't forget that. We have so many irons in the fire right now, if you will, and I don't feel like there's any that we can really drop. So I just think it's really important to remember that there's plenty of work going on, even as we look forward, I guess is where I was going with that. And there was so much, the last 2 years has been so crazy, and we've had so much turnaround. We finally have everybody where we want them. We have all the seats on the bus filled with the people we want in those seats. And I just think it's imperative to get used to working with all those people and make sure, and like you're talking with Tim tonight, getting getting everything nailed down and make sure everyone knows their role and that we keep moving forward with the things we're already working on. So that's where I was coming from with number 5. So basically I have 4 goals and the continuation of existing work.
So, and then obviously this is meant to be a little more of a informal than a typical meeting, but as the mayor alluded to, we want to make sure we're keeping progress rolling in a organized fashion. So in favor of that, we have the blue board or the whiteboard rather, available with some dry erase markers. We can add commentary from the commission and others. But before we jump into that, I wanted to make sure we saw the presentations from that were submitted by Commissioner Swem as well. And that way I can also show you guys what I've prepared. And then once we go through all those, we'll jump into conversation if that makes sense for you guys. But obviously I want this to be fluid and however you think.
No, I was going to suggest that because really some of Commissioner Swem's are the exact same as mine.
Yep.
And it's just a matter of priority, and I think if we can go through his goals and then through your goals and then the other commissioners' goals, then we can figure out which ones land on all of our plates and we can start prioritizing them.
I think that would be a really wise way to do it. If we can find what our overlapping goals are
Yep.
and start there and prioritize, I think that'd be extremely helpful. So, and apologies, there's not really a very graceful way to do this and not have my back to you guys, so I apologize for that, but let me get this up and going the right way. Zoomed in way too much.
And while you were getting that ready, I did see a hand raised.
Electrovoice, it's privately held yet still, right? So I mean, there's not really too much other than organizing the brownfield.
Well, I mean, in the past, we've been contacted by that property owner about purchasing the property. And I just think that we need to look back into it and look back into, and then, we just need to figure out what to do with it. Something needs to happen with it. Right now, it's an extremely valuable piece of property that's sitting there unused.
He's got a good point, though. I think one of Heather's initiatives is the brownfield.
Yeah.
And that would definitely fall within that, so that,
Well, if you condemn him, you'll force him to do something too. Sometimes you gotta get nasty.
we do.
You've been playing with it for 10 years.
And we do had at the last meeting, we had the blight enforcement in our ordinance updates, and that would fall into that category.
All right, so if I may, I'll jump right into the examples of 11 goals developed and submitted by Commissioner Swem. My apologies. You're very swell tonight, Patrick.
Oh, shucks.
Our 11 goal summary. First, 2023 Front Street strategy. Second, DPW successful completion. Third, master plan objective strategy. Fourth, Buchanan Area Recreation Board master plan objective strategy. Fifth, Michigan Main Street program objectives. Sixth, city-owned property and structure strategy. Seventh, water sewer bill impact strategy. Number 8, business development strategy. 9, city overhead efficiency review. 10 is community enrichment strategy. And 11, tax review and strategy. So anyone taking notes may have noticed we do already have some overlap here with the mayor's 5 recommendations and these 11 goal summaries provided by Commissioner Swem. There's some additional information I'll go through just quickly. So a little bit of a breakdown for the 2023 Front Street strategy, including but not limited to funding, business impact minimization, design, and parking. For the second goal, DPW successful completion, to include defining what is a successful project, a funding strategy and cost. For the master plan, setting goals to achieve the mutually agreed upon plan within the recently passed master plan. For our Buchanan Area Recreation Board, or BARB master plan, set goals to achieve the BARB master plan objectives. Michigan Main Street, identify and outline strategies on how we will achieve more favorable scoring in order to be successful in the program in reference to the recently supplied evaluation by the MEDC. For city-owned property and structure, identify and outline strategies as to how the city will maintain and or replace the police, fire, and city hall properties. Also, which properties, both developed and undeveloped, does the city want to move back into the private sector, and which ones might the city want to acquire, and why? For water sewer bill impact strategy, following the 2023 expansion, what measures can the city take to reduce the impact on our residents' water bills? Consider the change order that was approved for the water treatment facility to allow the city to take more commercial waste for treatment. This potential revenue sector, if successfully implemented, should have a major impact on the city's enterprise billing, and this, along with other cost-saving strategies, should be prioritized. For the business development strategy, conduct a feasibility study as to what does the city want to attract? Are they sustainable? How can the city nurture growth? Does the city need to protect any current businesses? And how does the city measure success? For the overhead efficiency review, what are the areas in which the city is overstaffed or understaffed, can be automated, consolidated, outsourced, and or eliminated altogether? What services are no longer needed? What is the return on investment on expenditures? And develop departmental capital outlay strategies. For community enrichment, how does the city become and remain a place where people love to live, visit, and entertain? What else can the city do to maintain an interest in our community year-round, like concerts on the Common? And how does the city focus on bringing vibrancy to the community? Finally, for the review of taxes levied and strategy going forward, what are the city's taxes being used for? The citizens and the city should be able to explain to the residents how their tax dollars are being used. So we want to ask ourselves, does the commission want to adopt any of the goals that we've been discussing? And if so, are there additional goals that they want to be considered as well? Number 2, how should the final list of goals be prioritized, or what order should the goals be listed in? And thirdly, my goal for this meeting is the commission ready to clearly communicate a consensus on a prioritized list of goals? Or in other words, is the commission ready to vote to approve a prioritized list of goals, or do you want more time to think about it first? So that's what I'm hoping to gain this evening, is at least a consensus towards what we're looking at for our top prioritized goals.
If I can, yeah, I'd like to just ask the other commissioners real quick, if there's anything on your list that you didn't see on those lists, if there's any goals that weren't mentioned.
no. I think we got it pretty much all covered.
Do you want to just go over your goals then, quick, or?
Sure. So I had mentioned earlier, right before we did the police department report, that my three main overarching goals are first, to demonstrate high quality and value in city services. Second, to ensure efficient and effective regulation of activities within the city. And third, create opportunities for prosperity. So similarly to some of the presentations I gave earlier, there is an additional goal breakdown for the first goal. So I listed it as 1A, regular financial presentations that clearly explain all revenues and expenditures. 1B, utilize the budget as a tool to display and document value-added activities. For 1C, present comparables relating to taxables in other communities versus services provided. 1D, make use of all forms of media to tell the story of what people get for their tax dollars. 1E, create a culture of teamwork centered around the objective of continuous improvement. So back to the second goal of ensuring efficient and effective regulation of activities within the city. Under 2A, I listed identify issues of concern that require new or different means of regulation or enforcement. Under 2B, clean up existing regulations and ordinances, as well as means of enforcement. And 2C, create new ordinances and rules to more efficiently regulate activities within the city. Again, we alluded to that in the conversation in regards to the police department. So back to the third major category, create opportunities for prosperity. Under 3A, make Buchanan development/redevelopment ready. 3A, Section I, create and implement a developer's toolkit. Section A2, participate in and complete the MEDC's Redevelopment Ready Communities program. 3, participate in and complete the MEDC's Michigan Main Street program. Develop a sense of place by enhancing Buchanan's health, education, and recreational activities and offerings to attract and retain talent. For 3BI, engage with neighboring jurisdictions to show a cohesive community environment. 3B2, create a 5-year recreation plan that can be used to guide health and recreational development. 3B3, work closely with our Buchanan area school district to enhance educational offerings. 3B4, curate an orchestra of shopping and recreational offerings in our downtown and business corridors. And 3B5, work with property owners and developers to increase missing middle housing availability. I'd also presented essentially a way to track the measurables for are we achieving these goals and what status of progress are we in towards those the goal achievements.
Would some of your goals under 3A, 3A1, I see some of those as my number 5.
Mm-hmm.
Things that are already taking place, that are kind of in motion. And I'm just trying to start up a conversation, so anybody feel free to chip in. But that's kind of how I see some of those that you listed in your 3.
Yeah,
And
because I
again-
definitely don't want to lose momentum for things that we're already working on but aren't yet complete. I don't want that to go by the wayside.
Sure. And I guess the other thing that I would say before we really start having a conversation is, and I hate to put you on the spot, Mr. Murphy, but are there any goals that you have that you're not currently, you don't feel maybe like we've given you the tools to run with yet, or?
Yeah,
Yeah.
so this is great to just listen to you guys and know that we're kind of in lockstep on what's on your mind and what's on my mind from an economic development perspective. My goals are economic development, job creation, building the tax base, community pride, marketing. The way that I look at things is, and I took some time today to draw the dashboard of the
Economic Development Express in Buchanan. If I could just share that with you. And this is kind of the things that are on my mind.
Thanks, Rich.
That are almost, I think every one of your goals you mentioned.
I got you right here.
Are on yours as well.
Thanks, Rich.
But there's a law of the Economic Development Express, and that's that it always moves forward. So what we have is just a series of opportunities and things that happen in a fluid motion that cause certain projects to be prioritized. For example, somebody buys a property and has a vision they want to implement, that typically can rise to the top. So I have really captured in a different manner, instead of a list, it's more of a dashboard. And so I wanted to share this with you to make sure that this was in kind of your dashboard as well. We talked a little bit about business development last meeting. I shared some ideas I have. I'm open to other ideas. I really like the specific action items that Heather listed and some of the market stuff that I think could be helpful. But I also think we need to come up with a housing strategy. And that issue is kind of being forced right now because we have developers that are looking at properties that the city controls and that private entities control. We have long-term city properties or historic properties, large parcels such as River Street, Feed Mill, Electrolux, all day long, and we need to be moving down that path. So, I mean, to me, the additional goal I would throw out there is to leverage our waterfront and our public access on the St. Joe River, which can energize, I think, adjacent property and create this sense of self we have. So I just wanted to show you what was on my mind and stimulate the discussion tonight and make sure that we walk out of here that, at least I have my marching orders in terms of what we can go after, and I think we assign action steps and measurables, and we continue to communicate and move forward like we are. So I'm
Thank you.
open to any insight or questions or comments you may have.
Well, when I look at this, I totally get this. I know some people would look at it and go, "Wow, what a mess!" But I
That's
totally get this. As a leader, we don't get the choice of what we want to focus on. We have to deal with all of it. So our eyes have to be on every single piece. As Tim mentioned earlier, they drew up this great plan, and then Dave went and retired on you, and it kind of, so now you have to reevaluate, and you got to figure out how to make it work now. So I think it's important to remember that, in my mind, municipal government is kind of fluid, and things are always going to change. And what might not even be on your plate today will be your top priority tomorrow when the pipes collapse, or when this happens, or when that happens. So just keeping in mind that our priorities could change overnight is always a serious possibility, just as a way to open the conversation. But I totally get what you have going on here.
We can talk about strategies to go after certain sectors and things, but I will say the number one strategy is to be the place people want to be and leverage that virtual workforce future and leverage the way that people are going to make economic decisions and family decisions in the future is they want to be in the place they want to be first.
Okay, that's a great segue. Thank you. Because the reason I ever ran for office to begin with is because I'd like to see our taxes come down. So I think we have a serious issue in this town with it's not the place people want to be because it's too expensive to live here. And I think we have to make a serious effort to figure out why and how do we fix that? Or how do we prove to people that they're getting everything they're paying for? I think somehow we have to juggle that. Anybody?
So right now, I think it's pertinent. We're all in agreement. This is a work session, so we don't have to be fancy.
No, go ahead if you want to.
Let's make it.
Did you find markers?
Let's make it not
Yeah, I
fancy.
put some up there.
Not fancy would be better.
So I'd like us, if everyone's up for it,
Which was 11? Well, I tell you what, Patrick, why don't we just make a list and then we'll prioritize them after they're up there? Does that work?
I thought this
Or-
was our list. I'm fine with that. I mean, that's what I'm trying to do, put the list on the board and then.
Oh,
we
I
all
thought you were
rank
picking the ones that we
rank where
all
we
kind of
wanna be
agreed
on.
on, or that were on.
I mean, I thought everybody agreed on this list in principle, and then we could
Yeah,
rank it and then
yeah,
get
yeah.
things gone. But I have tax review and strategy as number 4 on my list, actually, so that's pretty high ranking. And Cameron's been asking for it for a long time. I think it's incredibly important that we can speak to the people in this room on how we're spending their money, right? But so we have, number 1 was downtown, 2023 downtown.
Yep, 2023 Front Street.
My handwriting's terrible, so you'll have to bear with me. What's next?
DPW successful completion,
Okay, next.
the master plan,
Wow, I'm gonna be a teacher.
the recreational board master plan,
Okay, next.
Michigan Main Street program,
Okay.
the city-owned property and structure strategy,
Okay.
water and sewer bill impact,
Okay.
our business development strategy, the city's overhead efficiency review, community enrichment, and the tax review.
Who wants what color? Pick color. You can go first.
Uh,
What do you think, Cam?
Oh,
My switch.
Orange it is. Alright, so for me, I mean, it would help us see where everybody else stands, because I'm really curious on what everybody.
So you want to label all those and
I'm just gonna
label
put a 1 for, and I'm gonna be brown on what I think is on that list, what I think is most important, and everybody else can put, I mean, Cameron might find tax review is the number 1 most important thing on this whole list to him, and it's 4 to me as an example. So for me, I have this as 2, 1, 9.
So as you're doing that, just to keep conversation going, in my opinion, the list is way too long. I mean, that's why I only listed 5, because I think unless you keep the list short and concise, I don't think you're gonna have attainable goals. I think you're gonna be all over the place. That's my personal belief.
Can I say something? I mean,
Sure, go ahead.
I think, above all else, I would think that the taxes would be the most, in my opinion, most important, just because that's the income of a country. And, is that, you know, no matter what you do, no matter where you are, everyone has a client. And if you're in government, you also have a product to sell. And that product is gonna be what Buchanan has to offer. So, from that perspective, what do you do to get people to wanna move here? Well, lowering taxes would probably make it cheaper to live here than a neighboring county, a neighboring city, a neighboring state for that matter.
So,
I mean, that,
Mhm.
I'm sorry if I can.
no, you're good, no, you're not.
But that would be key. Another thing I know, the other thing, probably marijuana, store, the cannabis store, how much revenue does that bring in for, you have one, so, not just, do you have one or just one or two?
We have five.
We have five.
Okay.
Plus
I saw-
multi.
Okay, my bad, I saw just.
But, and that's just
I'm glad.
retail.
I'm
That's, I
glad.
mean, there's a tax revenue, if the state doesn't continue to extract that from
Yeah.
us. They gave it to us once, they hope they'll do it again, but, it goes far beyond just what the retailers bring in from a physicality of consumers into the city. Individuals with a high paying, positions within these companies that are buying homes or at least moving to the area and spending additional money here. So I think there's, the revenue that they're generating goes far beyond just what's happening at the retail stores. As I'm sure you're alluding to.
But is there direct revenue to us? The
No,
answer is no.
No,
So-
thanks to the state.
Yeah, I mean, the state is amazing. I was reading an article this morning that said the state is shocked at how much money it has. It has a surplus of money.
I'm
And-
not shocked,
and-
they've kept all ours.
And yet we're not
Yeah.
going to get any. I mean, it's crazy.
They're actually, Michigan moved up to the
And the
number
rent.
3. Michigan is one of the hottest states right now in the whole country. They've moved up in conversations with Colorado
Well,
and Washington.
Yeah, I know
So-
that Colorado, I've spoken with some people out there, they wish they never made it. Because they're attracting a certain, again, the visible people, and again, I think the people that they're bringing in, it's not, it's a net loss to the state.
Okay, well, I don't want to get into
Yeah.
a marijuana
So-
conversation.
I
so-
didn't-
No, that's fine.
You're good.
That's fine.
But back to your comment about there being too much there. So I kind of see this as, well, you're number 5. There's a lot of ongoing expectations that are already happening
Right.
within this.
Right.
What I'd like to see happen is Heather use her department heads to work together on their portions of this and break this up. I mean, we put 55 goals on the landfill manager, and he knocks it out of the park, and he just crushes it. And a lot of those objectives, though, are day-to-day objectives still, too. So,
Right.
like the water sewer bill, I would expect Mr. Housen to be heavily involved in developing that strategy.
So would it make more sense then categorically
Well-
to address this list?
I'm sorry, I have to, I'm not because Bill Housen is qualified to run the facility, I'm not sure he's qualified to come up with a strategy for the bills for the sewer system. I mean,
Well, I think he has a seat at
I
that
mean,
table.
no, I think he has a seat at the table, but I think to say that Bill Housen's gonna come up with a strategy on how to,
Well, hasn't he already come up with a little bit of a strategy to, take in more,
Leachate.
leachate
yeah.
Mhm.
and, and make it worthwhile to the city.
Yeah.
So,
How do we
mean,
Yeah,
implement
so
it?
from that, I get that.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's,
It might be just that.
that's revenue as such into us, so.
Well, are we in this situation because we've seen far too long that the sole responsibility has always fallen on the city manager, and they weren't encouraged to engage with their department heads to
I don't know that
buy
they
into
weren't-
this type of
weren't
logic?
Encouraged to, they just didn't.
Okay, well, I respect that, because I know that in my past and the successes I've had is that it's directly related to the individuals who take responsibility and then trickle that information up to Heather in this instance, that, yeah, you're taking sole responsibility, but individuals and departments have these as part of their number 1, number 2 goals, depending on how it falls in categorically, once again, so that, they seem a lot more achievable than just looking at Heather and going, why didn't you do this? And you go, well, how is it broken down? How are you placing these as a priority on individuals within those departments, right? And do we have the right people? And and then maybe you see cracks in the foundation, right? Because you have that, and you can say, okay, I'm failing here, but it's not because the person's not solid, they've been there forever. Financially, from that perspective, they don't understand or have the capabilities and training opportunity right there, right? So that they can be a stronger person in that regard. So, Dan?
I gotta be damned honest with you, I have to.
As long as
You
you're kind.
guys are all sitting up there and you're all managers. I was a leader, I was a manager, I was an operator. And you guys say, you expect your help to come up with ideas. Let's be honest here. 90% anything but a paycheck. They don't want to be noticed. Now, you're looking at the exception, extreme exception, and I really threw out ideas nonstop. And what did I get? I get canceled nonstop. So I mean, when you're sitting up there saying you're gonna get these ideas from staff, it's a pipe dream.
Okay.
I'll respond to that, and I think that's a valid point, and I don't think that's the expectation whatsoever. I think for far too long, the expectation was that they were wallflowers, that they just existed within the city, they didn't contribute to the day-to-day operation because that was the expectation. I think we far exceeded that. I think the things that we've done over the last 4 years in implementing with Chief Gaines, I think honestly it started there, and we started to build a foundation that was not previously there. And we said this before, and I'll harp on it again, that is why we have to encourage Heather to put these individuals in place, like Rich, and then we start holding them accountable because the accountability was not there. So I don't disagree with you at all. But I don't want to continue down with the same narrative that's what they are. Well, then we need to place higher expectations on these people, and if they can't meet those expectations, then they need to be moved on or moved over or replaced. So we're in agreement, but we can't just sit idle and say, well, this is what has always been done. So here we are today trying to determine, okay, who are these individuals we're gonna hold accountable? We're gonna hold Chief accountable and future Chief in the safety department. We're gonna hold Rich accountable, we always do. Mike has to have the same expectation. Bill has to have the same expectation. These are things that we have to do. It's a priority for you. These are your department heads. What are they doing? Because then
Agreed.
you hold them accountable and make them either present to us or you present their ideas so that we can move forward. Because Chief shows up and does it, Rich does.
Agreed.
We have to have this structure. Well, if we don't start to build it and we always go back to what we always did, I agree, we would still be in the same spot. And I don't want to be there. So here we are tonight.
Talking about the future. So let's
Exactly.
talk about the future.
Yes.
Yep.
Somebody else want to take a crack? You want me to?
Go for it.
Go-
Go ahead.
Yeah,
Sorry.
that's one thing we could do better too, is understanding
Get pretty
priorities
heated.
of each other,
So I
right?
get
And where
excited
everything
about this
ranks.
Structure.
Important.
It's easier to think that way.
I made this thing my own list. I made it my list, but I can't remember what.
What did you do? Right there.
Okay,
Right.
yeah, he has his own. That's mine.
No, right here.
We had at least
Oh,
Oh, yeah.
the-
Yeah, I mean, I just wrote
Yeah,
down
I
the
had
11 because I thought
Overlap.
is in a broad stroke we were.
see, and I see it as I'm gonna have to go categories because one of
You do whatever you want. I mean, some of those I had as more future objectives.
I'm gonna take it from
I think we have to keep in mind, like, master plan and Barb, right, everybody? We're not gonna accomplish everything that has to be done in that plan this year. But we can outline some objectives on those that are impacted by that plan, cause it might have parts that impact Chief, it might have parts that impact, the DPW and Mike's team that he has to play a factor in. And some of that might be 2-3 years out from just a planning standpoint, because we wanna go after grant funds for one of those initiatives. But without having that target to aim for, we just put master plan up there as an example, and well, what measurables are there? And I think that's important for at least me, when we are here in 9 months to start on Heather's review again. I wanna be looking at something that says, this was the measurable objective that she and her department came up with,
That's,
and
I just, it's
I
getting.
can measure whether we had success with it or not.
I agree with you. I really do, but I think we're getting too deep in the weeds where, and Chief, I hate to pick on you, but I think from a structure standpoint, you're looking at this most solid structure we have within the city as far as ranking and policies and procedures, right? Without a doubt, it's run very similar to a military type of structure, right? And that's what I'm accustomed to, Larry's as well. And I think within that structure, you hold accountability down, right? And the expectations are different. And I think that's where we have to look at it from that perspective, is that your department heads are coming to you and saying, okay, I need new X. And it's not a competition. They're not coming at it from, okay, I'm against the DPW, I'm against the water department. We're looking at it collectively. What are we doing as leaders within your group who are making the best decision for the city? That's our responsibilities to the constituents to do that. Well, if we don't start to do that, and once again, I think we did that, that's why we put you there. I think that was the greatest move ever. The combined thing was absolutely ridiculous, but that is what it is. So the reason I'm saying all this is because I see that we're gonna continue to try to break these down individually. We need to chunk them together and say, okay, Rich, this is yours. However you accomplish it, be it with the people you have on your team, he's still accountable to you, right? So on and so forth. it just gets us out of this mindset that it's all on you, and we start focusing on them bringing the ideas to us and helping us understand how they're gonna help you achieve it. I guarantee your review will be stellar if we can do that instead of, these are, if we rank it just on what we think, it may not be what you, your department head sees a priority. And then have them come in and present to us
That's
why they think
and
it's.
I
is
don't
that-
mean to interrupt. I guess to that point, I agree with you to the point that I think our responsibility is to chart a course and to, you know, kind of to speak to what Heather has been pointing out is she needs concise direction from us on what to tackle first. And then she can delegate to the proper person.
I agree, but however, if we get input from the department heads, right, and from what their expectations are, their goals, what they see, because right now, I think we're solely going off of what we think. What
No,
we-
I disagree. I think
Okay.
we've hired her to run the city as
Right.
CEO of the city. And I trust her to put the right people to tackle the right jobs to make sure she conquers the goals we give her.
Okay.
But I think our goals for her have to be very clear, very concise, and very limited. I mean, that's just my opinion.
Right, no, I get it. I just, for some reason, I feel like we're doing this in an adverse direction, is that we're trying to present to her what we believe to be the right ones, but are we getting the right information back from their department heads or future department heads, or whatever we wanna call them? I really don't care, that's semantics at that point, but it may not align with where that department sees it, and maybe it does, or maybe we're completely off, but I don't know that we can sit up here and honestly say that my expectations for every department in here, and then your goals are meet that expectations, but then we potentially fail because we didn't get a solid.
Well, no, and I think
Is
we
wrong in
agree.
that?
No, I think we agree. I think maybe where we differ is, I lost it.
Well, I got it. I know why you're thinking about it. So, half that stuff up there is stuff we've already made a commitment to.
Right.
So how do we decide if the DPW is a complete flop or if it was a success? Or the 2023 plan, we completely botched, or we set a course for doing that successfully? Like, these are commitments we already have that we're expecting Heather to complete with 5 gold stars, right? Well, how does she know what 5 gold stars is? Because we're already committed to it. We spent how many years of not having a master plan complete that we finally got in place in Barb so they could get their grants. Well, how do we not get behind the 8 ball and achieve the objectives that those groups collectively said we need to do? So the plan on the idea is already done. We're not asking for a new idea. We're just asking for action on the idea that was collectively decided upon.
Yeah, 'cause we have all the ideas right here.
Right.
And, you know, so, you know, we gotta start moving on some of these to make sure that, you know, the city of Buchanan
You guys been
functions.
Hey, you've been sitting up here talking about DPW since before Larry and I
And-
got on. I think
exactly.
the one thing you guys
And-
want to get done is check that box, right?
Yeah,
But in my mind, that's already,
Has new
I see.
ground.
No,
It
no, but I
is
don't,
and
but I
it
don't
is
think
and
that
it
should
isn't,
be a
excuse me.
goal. I mean, that's just my opinion. I don't think that should be a goal because we're so far down that rabbit hole already. I mean, we're so far,
So it should be easily achievable.
it should be. I mean, I don't disagree with you.
You got-
I
you
mean,
got no-
and that's gonna be, we're gonna know if that's a success or not a success.
How?
We're
If we
gonna know.
don't define success, how do you know it's success? If it costs us $8 million to build a DPW, how do you look at that as a success?
I'd have to tell you when it's done. I
can tell
mean
you,
that.
we write a
I
check
mean
for
that.
$8 million, that's a complete flop in my opinion. So I think we're giving her ambiguity is what we're giving. We're not giving clear direction. Sorry, that's just how I.
No, that's fine.
I mean, that's what this is for. I mean, I need to apologize.
you got Norma out here.
Sorry, Norma.
The latter of the city, you will have to look at it, hasn't been followed for a long time. You are underneath us. We hired you to do your best to run this city. You don't speak to many of us because not many show up. If we would hear from you and give you more wood, the manager is underneath you. And then employees are under
I get that, Norma. How would you recommend that we get more people here? Honestly.
Have something that we are interested in.
Well, we tried with cookies and.
I know, we did have a lot of people that night,
Yeah.
actually.
All right, Larry, I'll teach you how to make it.
Dan?
You guys are gonna fund your downtown project by water and sewer. So you really, really need to figure out, I mean, there's several things, tax revenue, city overhead, your $20 million downtown deal. With inflation and DPW, it's gonna be $40 million, you know? And then you got revenue income by getting rid of property, and we keep buying property. But my point being is, you're gonna finance with water and sewer. Now, you wanna lower your bills, but you're gonna put it all on water and sewer. But then you got water and sewer halfway down on a list of 10. You got a source of revenue. If we lose the landfill revenue, which it could happen, that's gonna be a shot in the eye. I mean, it's gonna hurt. And you've got an up-to-date water and sewer system with the capabilities of making an income. So you really should look at where your income's coming from, so that falls under tax revenue. Even though it's not a tax, the general public looks at it as a tax.
That says tax review, not revenue.
Yeah, it's
Well,
review.
tax review, but I mean, your water and sewer bill, it's a tax bill. The general public calls it a tax, it's a tax, because you've given it to the city.
I mean, I have to say, and I don't care how long the list is, but I think all of us, I'm hoping, can agree, that tax review and understanding, and if I had one criticism of the city administration, it would be that we've asked for that, and we need to have a solid understanding of what these millages are, when they fall off. We have got to start working with the school board to figure out what their plans are, how we're gonna function all that together. I mean, to me, that is the number one priority. If we don't have that understanding, the rest of the list is irrelevant, in my view.
So does it benefit us, and I was just showing Patrick, does it benefit us to have category 1, 2, 3, right? They don't have specific names, just one, top priority 1, and there's multiples under there, right? And within those categories, then we dispense that out to the department heads to achieve that. If we say, look, this is, you go to your department heads, this is number 1, is that?
I guess my only problem with what you're suggesting is that, we're not in charge of they don't report to us, they report to Heather. And so that would be my only hesitation there is, I don't feel comfortable, personally, I don't feel comfortable telling Bill Housen what to do, telling Mike Baker what to do. That's why we hired her.
Oh,
So, and I'm not.
no, that was not the intention at all. This is simply giving guidance to the city manager to say that this to me would eliminate some of the pressure to say, these are the priorities for those departments. Obviously, you probably thought of that, that's why you put those people in place. But I think that we need, within that, back to your point, there's measurable goals that we're giving to her, and they're gonna be translated down into those measurables, right? But we've got to, this list is, long, but I think we've got to put those in. Number 1, these are all number 1s. How does she achieve these number 1s? And here's the time frame, right? Because there's more than one number 1, I think, is our problem.
Agreed.
That's probably the
So
biggest
many of them
problem.
tie together, and so many of them are equally important.
Yeah.
And with multiple staff members, we should be wiping them out.
Yeah, that's, and if it's necessary and you need another person, even if if we contract out to get something accomplished in a specific area where we're lacking, that the person is solid, runs the department well, and I think back to your point about financials. Okay, and we ask Heather, maybe we need to contract out for 6 months to get, we're doing it now in that department, right? It's not without the scope of possibilities that is gonna happen again. It doesn't mean that person isn't adequate, and maybe they are right now, but to give them that skill, and I think if that within that, we're gonna get our measurables to accomplish this, but it doesn't, although it does fall on Heather's shoulders, still gives the responsibilities a broad spectrum look at, maybe we are lacking and that's our problem, and we're really not touching on it. And it's not any one person's fault. We're trying to rebuild something that honestly was broken for a long time because there was no communication. There was an open dialogue. So. Sure.
What I see is saying, I don't know what I heard, but that will just come into most because the least care. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Can you say that again?
That which is common to most gets the least care. So everybody's kind of responsible for one thing. Who's responsible? Everyone. Who's responsible? No one.
Mhm.
Who's
Right.
liable? No one. Who's liable? Everyone.
Once again, I took over the place for 10 years, never bonus. 4 years in a row, I bonused. Why? Because I brought my entire department and I said, this is our financials, here's our books. This is how we're gonna be successful. Either you tell me what your budget is or not is. And that,
It's not anything specific to,
Mm-mm.
management. I think that transcends any organization.
right.
Heather, she's, okay, I'm in control, but I've never asked before and said, well, I don't know, I mean,
Right. We gotta try to erase that and just put measurables down and say these are expectations. And I think that's, so, you were asking.
I just asked Karen if he had heads up there.
So I guess I'm curious. So tell me what's a measurable for 2023 downtown?
Well, a business impact minimization strategy is gonna be a really big deal there, in my opinion. I think that, we have to really get that ownership group down there to understand, if we tear the streets up, how would you plan to conduct business on the day-to-day if we think it's gonna take us 6 months? And what part does the city play in minimizing said impact? You know, cause we're gonna be talking to the developer or whatever you call it, the contractor that's gonna do that project. And it should be one of the top priorities within that is how do we make sure we don't shut down half our businesses downtown so they can't even operate? You know, budget, we've already done some legwork, funding, mapping, It's not like we're starting from scratch on some of that, but like, there's key elements that we still need to think about it, and we haven't discussed yet.
Just one small example to that point is just conversations we've had internally, Rich and myself and other members of the finance team, of trying to develop additional ways to offer incentives for businesses during that rough time period, such as maybe transforming a little bit the facade grant so that it's a rear facade grant and making it easier for them to have backdoor access during that time period where their front door is not accessible. And making sure that our wayfinding signage strategy is something that can be easily incorporated into this time period so that we're still making it easy to direct people to businesses that are still remaining open, things like that.
Can I just make one comment?
Yeah.
One thing about the downtown streetscape project is it's coming up, and it's critical that it's an A-plus project. So I mean, that's number one, because it's happening. So we've already initiated those discussions. That is going to be first and foremost. We have to get this project right. There's gonna be massive communication, et cetera. Some of these goals are like, pretty imminent, like that. Some of the goals are less so. When you talk about taxes, okay? Taxes, unless you drastically cut the budget or drastically increase taxes, then the only really way out is growth. And so when you look at Buchanan, in the 70s, and we had 1,000 more people lived here than they do now. There might be thousands of jobs too that aren't here anymore. So to get that tax base back, we have to grow. So, I mean, that's the only sustainable way to address the problem long-term. And I just want to bring that perspective up.
Well, that's why, I agree with you. That's why, for my first goal, I had the tax review, because part of what I had in there is getting an understanding of where we were a couple years ago, what kind of new revenue we've brought into the city with all the new businesses that we have, and all the new storefronts that are full, and we have a lot of houses that have people in them that didn't have people in them a couple years ago. So to me, that's a measurable, is that we can look at that data, and we can look at where we were a couple years ago, and we can look at where we are now. And I think that just gives me a better feeling of how to move forward, or what we're getting out of all this work we're doing. To me, that's a measurable. You can look at that data and say, here's where we were, here's where we are now. And we can kind of plan going forward. So I mean, that would be a measurable.
So snowball on that a little bit. So one of Rich's objectives, the 3 that he gave us, housing, right? And you said more houses is one thing we can measure. So Rich can come up with his housing strategy and say, hey, in the next 4 years or whatever, you know, I want to have 10 new builds. I'm just throwing random numbers. Or have a density project like that's spec'd out on the end of Red Bud Trail. I want to have a strategy along with how many that can hold. So and when an investor comes in, here's what he's proposing, or this is what it's going to take from his opinion to fund a portion of that. Maybe it's an infrastructure piece that the city's going to need to put some capital into. You know, bring a strategy around that, and it's a number of units, it's a projection on cost. You know, it's something that is tangible. We're not necessarily, I mean, we can set what his top 3 are, in our opinion, because we can say, Rich, we don't want you spending any more time with cannabis. We got enough cannabis, right? I think Rich gets that. But if we don't tell him something like that, he might just work on that. So he's given us 3, you know, personally 3 I like, and I'd like to see him put together, hey, here's how, this is what I want to do, and this is how I define success, if I did a good job or not. And if it makes, that's what I'm looking for.
I agree. I mean, for me, you look at we look at model communities that have grown, Rust Belt communities that have applied this strategy. It works. Okay, so what we have to do is look at our available land. Some of the land has kind of these problems with it that we need to solve, you know, and we're working on that. That may take a little while. Other land is ready to go. So, yeah, I mean, measure it in new starts, measure it in terms of job creation, all of that. So I'm all in favor of that, but growth is really the only way out, is my point.
Agreed.
And to that point,
sustainable growth.
Absolutely. And I think to that point, I think if you look at this list, and it seems to be that we're in alignment with what I consider to be our number 1 priorities. Each one of those number 1s is directly impacted or is impacted by number 2. It doesn't mean that number 2 is less than or less important. But if you look at it from that perspective, that those 3, the 4 and number 3, okay, I think we're pretty close on putting those where they're at. And the reason those on number 1 is because those are in our immediate future. These are right now. They're in front of us. We know what's coming. And you're impacted on the Main Street, on the business development, and the city-owned property because of each one of those categories. How are we going to increase revenue from water and sewer? How are we going to, you know, the 2023 project, how's that going to affect your Main Street program, your redevelopment program? Each one of those programs is affected by that. So
I guess what I'm saying is I agree completely with you. I think we're describing the exact same thing differently.
Okay.
It
might be just how my brain works.
No,
Right.
what you just said, I think, is right. I think but that's why I'm saying I look at it I look from farther away.
Okay.
So I think if we tell him to keep doing economic development, he'll come up with those things underneath it. He knows the things that he needs to do to do that.
Right.
I mean, that's all I'm saying is I don't know that we need to, you know, give them directions on how to make the cake. Just tell them to make the cake.
Well,
that should be our goal.
Agreed.
But-
And that's where the
okay.
top level stuff, we're just
Yeah.
categorizing it differently.
But hang
Agreed.
tight on that just for a second, that thought. So don't you feel like Heather's somewhat in that position today where we're saying, you guys can figure it out and just do it. If you don't know how they're gonna maintain the focus to us on what's getting done and what they're working on, we're just hoping that they're doing something.
No, not
And
at
we
all.
don't have
I mean,
anything to
no, because we're
measure.
not going anywhere. I mean, and I don't expect her to come up with every answer for every
Not every
question
answer,
or.
but like what I would like to see with a portion of that, all of that, whatever we end up setting, you know, I'd like to see quarterly. Hey, just like she's got on the front here, progress report on how I'm doing towards these goals. This is what we got going on. You know, when the departments come in to give us their reports, and you
Well,
know,
I'm not
Tim wants
saying
to
they
tell
couldn't
me
do
that
at
they've
all.
completed 20-something fires, but that's how I see this session on how we're outlining what the expectation for Heather to report to us on, so we know if she's achieving success, running into roadblocks, needs more resources, and it's in alignment with where we want her to work at, or what we want her to work on, and she's not working on something way off here on the side.
It's just, I'm sorry, just the ability to make a decision. I mean,
Yep.
make a decision. I mean, you don't wanna make perfect the enemy of the good, you know, it's a cardinal virtue, no one can ever achieve that. You wanna try and make as perfect or near perfect decision as you can, obviously. And, you know, eventually, you're right,
fast, right?
Pardon?
Fail fast.
I mean, it seems like,
You know, as long as you get on the line list, which you can.
If you're gonna fail, do it quickly.
looking at your goals that you listed, and you look at however you want to structure it up there. Sorry, Norma, I did see your hand, I do apologize. It seems to be that really, we've all said the same thing. From what it looks like, your goals seem to be in line with what the commissioners are. Your number one is demonstrate high quality, ensure efficient in that, and creating opportunities for prosperity. It's kind of fluid. I think that the prosperity one is really gonna be directly affected by the 2023 project. That's gonna be tough to say, okay, measurables, when we have the whole street torn up, it's gonna be a little bit harder to justify that we have to, we have to lower our expectations a little bit, cause it's gonna impact businesses. It's going to.
Oh, for
Cars
sure.
can't do U-turns
100%.
anymore. They can't walk downtown as easily as they did before, right? Right? So, does that seem to be, is anybody seeing that as well? I just happen to notice that we're really, without putting additional detail to this, it seems to be that.
I have a hard time with, not the plan, the model. Because we're hearing from Heather that we're pulling her in too many directions. She doesn't understand straightforward. That's why I'm drilling so hard on, I don't like just this carte blanche. We trust them to do everything they do. We do trust them to do everything they do, but they need some more direction from us is what I'm hearing from them, and we're not giving it.
Oh, see, I don't hear that.
It's in the presentation, I think, even.
I got a question. I'm gonna throw it at Heather. Okay, a couple years ago, you applied for a position and it had a specific job description to it. Thinking back to what you applied for and what you were hired to do, how do you feel that is different than what we're kind of talking about here today?
So there wasn't actually a particular job description. There was a community profile that included some essentially verbal descriptions of what the job would entail to some degree, but it wasn't a job description. I can share with you guys that document. I still have it. So that's part of what I want to get out of today is once we solidify what our goals are and what the measurables will be, I can turn that into basically amendments to some of the more standard sample job descriptions you would find for city managers prepared by groups like ICMA, International City Managers Association, things like that. So that's more targeted for our community because obviously every community is unique and special, and Buchanan definitely fits that bill. But no, there never was a particular job description that was prepared or given to me at any point, and I've not found one since I started.
Norma, did you?
You have many benefits that I don't ever hear about except the tax rate. We have leaf pickup. We have water and sewer. We have street plowing. We have fire. We have police. If you're gonna go someplace cheaper, are you gonna look for the benefits of the community, or are you gonna look at the dollar sign?
I totally agree with you. And I'm not just up here saying we need to lower taxes somehow. That's not at all what I'm saying. And I think there's a cost benefit analysis of what are we paying for and what are we getting. But I think, I guess more of what I'm getting to is I don't think anyone has had a good understanding of where the money is going or when, when those millages end. I want to know that. Like, I need to know that. It's driving me kooky.
I agree.
I'd like to know also what you plan on doing with the marijuana money. We hear a dollar sign, a figure.
So, okay, I just want to make this public announcement right now, Norma. And I want to make sure I'm saying it loud and clear. We don't get hardly anything for marijuana. So this idea that we're raking it in is nonsense, because we're not. We made $84,000 last year, and we're going to get less this coming year, and we have more stores open.
But that's the song and dance we were given when this whole thing started.
What, that you'd be swimming in money?
Yes.
I don't believe that was the song and dance. And I think, I'm not even gonna let Dan say something, but
Caution.
when they talked about bringing the marijuana businesses, a lot of what they talked about was refurbishing old buildings that were sitting empty, which that's happened in a lot of cases. They talked about bringing people to town. That's happened, and I'm sure Chief can tell you that there's a lot more traffic in town than there used to be. What am I forgetting?
So, actually,
revenue has gone up substantially because they're no longer deserted. Now, it's not multiple jobs, but it's people, individuals.
Actually, there are a lot more jobs in this town.
And the marijuana brought a lot of money in, and you never know when it's gonna fall on its butt. It could. And I mean, I wasn't so much for the dispensaries as I was for the grows and the process. The dispensaries, you know, that's blatantly in your face, selling dope on the streets. You know, and I mean, we're growing, like he said, we're
No,
growing.
we are growing, and I don't want to get too stuck in the mud with marijuana again, but know that, you know, it's a real issue, and it's had a lot of good effect on this town. I mean, a lot of good has come from having marijuana in town. I mean, and I'm sorry, I don't want to beat up on this, Norma, but what do you mean, talk to you? What do you want to know that we don't tell you? I mean that sincerely.
Okay, if I could say to people, we will be talking and saying something, rather than having, giving bills, paying for this, paying for that. Oh, we need to have a light bulb. Oh, well, we need to have, carpet more than we need a light bulb. Don't talk, let them give us something.
Go for it. You want me to? I'm gonna
Yeah,
try. I think the number one thing that you can say to anybody that has a question that's within your community and it was within earshot is to let them know that the way the city looks today would not look like this if we continued down the path that we were on, which was complete destruction. We had nothing. We had literally nobody coming to our town to build anything, jobs, refab. We had a few individuals who made some great decisions, right, wrong, or indifferent, to make businesses open downtown, and maybe they weren't the right decision. It's not my place to say. But you can tell whoever's asking you these questions, say, we have traffic. Traffic's a good thing. We have businesses that are not blighted anymore, and many more are not gonna be blighted as Rich goes out and finds more opportunities, or as they contact him. So if individuals are looking for a dollar-to-dollar function, or movement every single day, that's not necessarily what's happening. What's happening is behind the scenes, and the people coming to town, encouraging other businesses to move to town, to encourage other people to move to town, and to get people with higher paying jobs in town who want to stay. So I've heard it on the airwaves that they want to see where these dollars are going. The dollars are going where we asked them to go, to help businesses prosper, alleviate some of the pressure from taxes that were much higher than they expected from the federal government.
Which is the ultimate goal,
Yeah.
to be able to get industry and business to take care of some of the tax burden on the citizens is my personal goal. That's what I'd like to see. I'd like to see my taxes go down because we've created lots of new businesses in town, and there's more people living here to share the burden, and there's lots more houses. I mean, all those things are gonna help in the long run. But I think what's super, super important is to be persistent, consistent, and patient. It takes a lot of time, and the patience is the key one. It takes time for these things to happen. Part of it is because we only get to meet every 2 weeks, and we have to make decisions on things, and it just makes things work slowly, but that's municipal government. Yes, sir.
I just wanted to make one point, just to kind of bring a positive focus to this evening. I have been through a significant revitalization process that burned several years, and we have one going on right here now.
That's awesome.
And it's significant.
That's awesome.
So we need to keep getting logs in the fire, and we need to get our goals there and not beat ourselves up about the details. Get them up there, prioritize, give us time, all time, to come up with these details about how we're gonna go down the path. Allow some flexibility for just market and opportunities that come up along the way. And just, you know what? We're all rowing the same way. This is a very good position to be in right now.
Agreed.
I would
With the
agree.
leadership and this Heather's leadership, your leadership, the department heads. So I mean, I just think we should really do more of what we're doing. I keep saying that. I really understand that there's measurables and there's details, and we need to do a lot of work on the fine print. I'm fine with all of that. Let's write it down, and let's start doing it every day. Tomorrow, we start tomorrow.
I mean, and thank you
Yeah.
for saying that. And,
Mhm.
I mean, Patrick put this in front of me, and after reading it, honestly, I think you and I are agreeing to the exact same things. We're just saying it differently.
Yeah.
And I think Rich is onto something, though. I think if we can if we can give high-level goals and then have you come back to us with how you're going to achieve those goals, I think that'll help the conversation go easier.
That's
So that's why
exactly what I was driving towards.
every one of
100%,
these-
not us telling them,
Hey,
we're giving
Rich.
them the top,
Yeah.
and then you're gonna, sorry, Rich.
So that's where I'm at with each one of these saying strategy at the end. I didn't put measurables other than a couple things on that list, just to kind of as conversation starters. But I want them to come to us and present. How are we gonna achieve these things? And this is our plan.
Yeah, no, I think we're all on the same page.
And I wanna
mean,
hold Heather accountable, though, to making sure all 11 of those, in my opinion, happen.
I think that's too many. I mean, I'm just gonna, I mean, that's where you and
Well,
I
they
differ,
set
but
their
we agree.
timeline, right? They, it might not, it's not gonna be 12 months on all these. Some of these are gonna be 12 months, like DPW, right? But I wanna know, over the next 3 years of my term, that these are getting touched. And there's a plan.
Chief wanted to say something.
You know, we talked about chain of command a little bit ago.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's the citizens and the commission and Heather and then down. Just so you know, for, department head, we want to hear from the citizen and the commission. And we want that to filter through Heather as we have special tasks that you guys want or special, goals. We wanna know those things, so I pass it down through, like with my officers, to make sure those are done. It doesn't just flow one way, it flows back. So I report to Heather, so Heather can report to you, or I can report to you, so you know the status of those. And I think maybe that's where we're having a little bit of breakdown, is that we're responsible to come back to either Heather or you and say,
Agreed.
these things are done, or they didn't get done, and this is why, and be held accountable for the things that you want us to do through the city manager.
Yep.
And I know Richard Murphy, I've heard Richard say, hey, give me direction, what is
Yeah.
it you want? Your department head wants direction. We want direction from the citizen of what's going on, how can we fix things, what can we do better in our department
Right.
to make the whole community better.
Yep.
So that way, I think, is what we're looking at. It just doesn't go downhill, it's gotta come back with what we're doing. And
Right.
I think that's what you guys are talking about. Again, for those military people, that's chain of command.
Yep.
It goes down and then it's gotta come back, you've gotta report what you did.
And
I
I'm,
agree.
I'm fine with using this list of 11 if that's what the commission wants to do, but I still think we need to prioritize it, for the city manager.
Oh,
Well,
completely,
I mean-
100% agree.
Yeah, I think Commissioner Whedon came up with a good idea here.
Yeah, I like that.
Categorize it, prioritize within
Mm-hmm.
the categories going across, we may need 6 categories, let's say, but prioritize and get those priorities in the right categories and then start working on them from there. Because, like Commissioner Swim said, we sat here for a year and we've talked about a lot of different things, and we really haven't got a lot of things accomplished as of yet. But going back to Mr. Whedon, we've had a lot of turnover within this city, and hopefully now we've got that all in place, and we can start working towards a goal. And that goal is to make the city a little bit better place to live, and hopefully with the staff that we have in place now, with what Chief Gaines wants to do, what Mr. Baker's done, hopefully what the mayor and this commission is trying to do, along with Mr. Murphy and the city manager, we can start achieving those potentials. And like I said, I kind of like what Commissioner Whedon did here as far as the categories and prioritizing. I think that's the step that we need to take, quite possibly.
And I think, Sean, to your point, it was 100% in the exact same alignment with where my brain was on that category, is to say, I don't want to manage the day-to-day, that's Heather's job.
Yeah.
I agree.
Perfectly okay with that. I think what we do then is so if Rich looks at that and go, okay, I'm in category 2 and 3, you're not only, but in this situation, you happen to be. That doesn't mean that we still lower our expectations. Chief, you don't have a category, I'm sorry, but, and we can find one. It's somewhere like, it's like 1.1, it's, yeah.
So you, like, you mentioned military, I mean, there's decisions that you have to make every day that have real world consequences, right? You know, especially you go on call, you know, what's the real world, what am I going into, what's the real world consequence here? You try to make the best decision possible, may or may not be perfect, and it's gonna be a good one with the information at hand. But ultimately, you have to take responsibility for that, and you can't pass up that responsibility for that action taken. I mean, I can name a million of them. My grandfather was and I know not only is he responsible for his actions, but he's responsible for everyone under him and their actions. And on top of that, he has to speak for it. Same thing, I would think here is that you're the arm or the voice of the citizens, and they tell you, okay, we trust you to make the decision, otherwise, you know, we just do it like they did in Athens, Greece, and we just all, or everybody just decides on every decision possibly being made. And at this point, it's kind of like the Republic, where you guys are hired to make the decision and then delegate. And hiring the right people for something like this, you know, it's not just about money, they're not just looking for a job where they get paid, they're actually looking for a sense of accomplishment. And sense of accomplishment comes from actually achieving a goal. And I would say, you wanna keep people, you wanna keep good people, give them that.
So Sean, to that point, I know we can belabor on conversations and about strategies all night. Where do you see the next step, regardless if it's coming from that list,
Well,
that category?
I mean, just to beat up what's on that board again, as I'm looking at that now, and I'm looking at the way you laid it out, I'm almost seeing, it's kind of weird, but like, so I'm seeing some things, some of those things could be labeled as projects that are already underway, like DBW's already been started.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Really, the 2023 downtown, I know that Rich and Heather are already having conversations with Baker Tilly, or
Well, we're mostly speaking with Prine and Newhoff. at
Or
the
that's what
moment.
I meant, Brian and Newhoff. So I know that, even though we haven't really been brought into that, the community it hasn't been unleashed on the community yet, I know that thing is already started. So I look at some of those things, like I think we could lump some of them together and then maybe say, like group number 2, that's almost like an economic development group. Let's let
Oh,
Rich figure out how to come back with us. How am I gonna tackle these things, okay? We put number 1 and we say, these are Heather's goals. And maybe you don't want it that way, but I'm just thinking out loud, but I think that we could label some of those things. I mean, I think the master plan, the BARD plan, those are things that are gonna take a long time to get measurables.
So my problem with that is, right, they put objectives in those plans. Who's working on making sure they're achieved over the next 5 years? Who's responsible for that?
Our city manager.
Okay, so how are we monitoring that? I don't need a report every month.
My guess would be she's going to keep updating us.
How? So
See,
that's why I say
this
we
is down
need-
in the weeds. in
Well,
my
I want a
opinion, like-
quarterly report is what I'm saying on whatever the objectives are.
Okay, so I go back to my number 5 on my list. She still has day-to-day things with, hey, I'm sick, I'm not gonna be in today, and she has to think, crap, how am I gonna go to the meeting and still do that and still cover for this person? So there's all of that going on. So
Sure.
I just am afraid of getting too far down into the weeds with, you know,
I'm just asking.
I want her
for-
to email me every 2 months with an update. I
I
mean,
just
to
want a
me,
progress
that's.
report.
Okay, I think where it's at, and this is where and Chief, I hate to keep bringing it up, it's the only way I can see the structure working, is that right now, you have somebody who's standing in essentially for you. If you're unavailable, there is somebody that fills your shoes. They're the chief in that time, they're the captain on the watch, right? And that would be a question for you. That would be a goal to say, who are we leaning on in the event that you're not here, who's pushing these priorities forward, right? And I believe, to your point, 2 things, that I think it's fluid. I think you're right, they're gonna jump in and out of what's number 1, depending on what the situation is. But I think that's, right now, is it a concerted fear that we don't have a solid, number 2 and 3? Maybe we do, but we need to know who they are. And is everybody in lockstep with your achievements, your goals, and can we rely on them to give us, quantifiable maybe I'm
No,
wrong,
I guess the only thing that I'm trying to communicate is, and I'm not disagreeing with anything that anybody's saying. My thing is that I don't wanna burden, I'm trying to look at it at the human level, like, we deal with this every 2 weeks, and she's dealing with this every day for 12 hours a day or more, probably more over the last 12 months. And, you know, I don't wanna saddle her or burden her with, I want you to update me every, you know, I mean, I just don't wanna be that way. I don't think it's fair. And maybe that's not even what you're saying.
I don't think that's the expectation.
But I think she would even tell you that she's going to keep us informed on how things are happening, this is where we're at with this.
Well, I think there's concerns that that's not happening, and that's where I'm, you know, you brought up tax review, we've been asking for.
And I said, that would be
So, but I
my-
think there's others, including myself, that feel like there are things that she's working her tail off on, but I don't know. And I wanna know, and I wanna be able
Well,
to
so
make informed decisions when I'm sitting up here. And if I don't have the information, and I don't know the boat is rowing in the right direction, and I can't change the course when I don't have updates for 3 to 6 months, or if one of these
Okay,
counts
so-
as not addressed for an entire year, well, why wasn't it addressed? Was there something?
So I think I said that we should need to talk about this during this meeting. You know, one of the things that has happened is that a commissioner will ask Heather, hey, I'd like you to do this. And another commissioner will say, hey, I'd like you to do this.
Right.
And he'd like her to do this. So she's doing all these things, and she's juggling staff that's not here, people are on COVID quarantine.
Mhm.
I got a truck that's broke down, we have a pipe broke, we're trying to order this, I gotta get this ready for a meeting, somebody just quit, now I gotta go hire somebody.
Mhm. That's
So,
real.
But a lot of those things should be handled below her level too. She shouldn't be having to deal with that stuff.
That's my point.
Tim's gonna handle the hire, right?
True. If it's a water sewer.
I think
issue,
we're dealing
Bill's
with,
gonna do
we're
it.
dealing with a situation that has never had structure. We're trying to apply structure that is not there completely. I think you have started the ball in the right direction. I think, but we have to back up and say, okay, if she feels that way, what is she missing on the secondary level that is going to ensure that she doesn't have to feel that way? There should be a ability to pass information over to an individual and have an expectation placed upon them indirectly coming from us, and that pressure is placed upon her.
Sit down. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
Rich, you can
But
sit
I
down.
feel like,
I was gonna ask you now.
I feel like we've gotten away from goals for the city to, trying to figure out the operations in City Hall. I feel like that's how this discussion has gone.
I think that's where you're taking it, because you're saying we're getting into the weeds. At least from my perspective, I'm asking, I want strategies developed by her and her department heads to show us how they're gonna implement what they wanna do. And when they bring said strategy to us, we can say, yeah, we like that strategy, go for it, gung ho. Or, hey, Rich, we don't wanna do any more cannabis. Scrap that part, bring us a different idea, here's kinda what we're thinking based on what you brought to us.
And I think ultimately, we're still holding her accountable. So I think what you said is 100% what I was
Right,
thinking.
and I think, Manager Grace had that, and then all of a sudden it started falling apart. And now she's got another team, so we can't, you know, we can't expect the other team, in my opinion, just to start from where the other supposedly left off. They're playing a little bit of catch-up, and I think personally that they're doing a good job. I can't speak for all of them, Courtney's new, but I think they're trying to do a good job under the direction that they're getting, you know. And it's gonna be the same way, we'll go right back to Tim, it's gonna be the same way with who he picks to do that job. You know, that person may or may not still be a little bit into the weeds,
Yeah.
but, you know, we're gonna get the right person out of that position, and I think that's what's happening here.
So I guess,
And we're impatient sometimes. I think,
That's fair.
we're a little bit impatient. For some of you, you've been here a little bit longer than Patrick and I have, or Commissioner Swim, and so you're expecting, you know, a little bit more maybe than we are, but we are still expecting to get that, and we need to know where that's coming from.
Well, I think,
Same with
but
Mr.
going
Murray.
back to what I was saying a minute ago, though, I think it's important that, I think somehow, not even just for this commission, but for future commissions, that we have to come up with, we have to come up with a strategy for us as a commission to figure out who's tasking her with what. So I would think, and this is not because I'm mayor, but I think the commission needs to send things to one person and say, I think we need to look at this. We need to have the city manager look at this. So that we don't have her juggling all these different balls, and I don't even know what you've asked her to do, or
Right.
what he's asked her to do. I mean, you know what I mean? I mean, so I think that's where some of the.
I agree with you.
I can't get an answer. Well, it's because she's juggling all these things and trying to answer you, me, and the other two.
If you
That's
blind,
fair.
if
I
you
agree.
blind copy somebody and then they reply, does it only go to you if they're blind copied, or is that? I'm
I
just
think it
curious,
does.
because I don't,
Yeah.
without violating the Open Meetings Act, I think that if you blind copy and they reply, it only goes to you. The reason I bring that up is that there could be a communication avenue where those type of things still are funneled to Heather through the five of us and avoid, because that's the last thing we want is to give any appearance that we're trying to navigate around the Open Meetings Act, but it still gives us the capabilities to at least see what everybody else is communicating. Because there could be a question that Cameron's asked that maybe we didn't think of, right? And it's something that now it expands into a goal, because now we're all maybe focused on this one entity, right? But we have to find that strategy. I don't think we need to find another individual to funnel this information to her. We need to find a way
No,
for her to get.
I mean, I honestly, I think it should come to one person on the commission, the mayor.
I agree.
And then, you know, I can have a if you wanna do something, I
Mhm.
can go to Patrick and say, this is what Mark wants to do, what are your thoughts?
Yeah.
I can go to him and do the same thing. And then after I get either a consensus, or I can say, everybody said you're blowing smoke, Mark, they don't wanna do what you're asking to do, then I can come back to
Right.
you and tell you that, rather than waste her time
I'm okay.
chasing something that not all of us are even interested in or think is important.
I
or-
agree.
Other than having her, you know, so I guess what I'm trying to get back to is the fact that when we hear that maybe you were not getting the information that you're asking for, maybe it's because she's working too hard to try and get answers for too many people
She's
at one
reporting to
time.
5 people.
And
Right.
we're not all in sync,
Yeah.
is what I'm getting
Yeah.
at.
And I think we
could say
probably
that
are.
That would be hugely beneficial if we steered it more in that direction. That would help me tons, because there really is a lot of effort expended going in 5 different directions that could be consolidated and make all of our jobs a lot easier if we know there's at least a consensus before we spend too much time and effort down a path that in the end nothing comes of it, when all that time we could and should have been directed towards these priorities.
And that's really nothing that we're not doing now. I mean, there are times when Rich has come to me and said, hey, can you get a feel for this? And I've had to call you guys
Yeah.
separately and say, hey, what do you think about this idea? And try to get a consensus and go back to her and say, yeah, it's never gonna happen, nobody wants to do that.
Right.
Or everybody's on board, bring it,
Yep.
you know?
Yep.
So I think that would be huge.
I agree.
Now, that being said, I'm all for, I think we need to start setting our priorities then. And then, does it make sense for you to get with your staff and come back with how you're going to tackle each one of these priorities?
I think that would be fantastic.
Because I would never want to see, I would imagine you probably don't feel comfortable going to Chief Gaines and say, these are your goals. And Rich, these are your goals,
I
right?
view everything
Two
as a
different
team,
entities,
yeah.
right, far different, but I think they would be better suited to say, look, these are my goals. And then you come to us and say, this is the information, this is what my team is telling me, at every department. And do they seem to be in line with where the community wants, all right, to Norma's point, Dan's point? Is it in alignment with where the commissioners see it from our level, right? So 10,000, so on and so forth, and I think then you would definitely feel confident to go, look, I'm not gonna meet this goal, and here's why. And then we have justifiable rationale as to why it's not gonna happen.
I think what's really, and not to interrupt, but I think what's really important is that we're all on the same page with what these goals are. I mean, we're all, to Rich's point, we're all rowing in the same direction. We all want the same things, and we're all working to get there. We just need to prioritize these so that they have direction and can clearly come back to us with how they're gonna do that.
Do you think it
Who's
would be
gonna do that?
beneficial to who is going to be that point of reference?
Well,
Now,
you know,
we don't dictate, I know
I'm going to
she's-
leave that to her. I
Okay.
mean, in my opinion, I would leave that to her.
I agree,
And to
but
sit down with their team and say, hey, who do you think's best suited to do this?
But we
And
need to
somebody
know.
might say, I would love to do that.
Yeah.
We don't know that. That could happen in a
Right.
meeting with,
I just say that I think we need to know, not that they don't report to us, we can't
well,
control it.
I think that would come back in the report, though. They would say, she will come up, she'll have, you know, this is how I'm going to do it, this is who I'm going to task it with, and.
Perfect.
I
I'm
mean,
I'm
so
telling you,
Does that make
it's-
sense?
Yeah, no, totally. I think that's very achievable and helps us have that direction and guidance that we're searching for, and I think that would be very beneficial.
I
So
feel like
then
you
are
can
you
prioritize then. I think that's where it's gonna allow you to prioritize what you do on a day-to-day, because I've already, you personally, I'm saying that as you, I've passed this on to Kayla. I need you to do, Kayla,
Kala.
And it might seem.
Kayla? God darn it, put that.
It
I put
might
the
seem like,
syllable in the
and I
wrong
hate
place.
for it to look like we're bickering and beating this to death, but, one of the things, and I don't wanna talk bad about previous commissions, but you know, when I first started coming to meetings and I went to goal-setting sessions, they had everything under the sun on there. And you can't achieve anything that way, and there was never really a prioritization. It was like a wish list of all these things we wanted to do.
It was a rock and roll fantasy.
And no,
Yeah.
and no offense,
So I mean-
basically this, they went, you know what?
And I
these
think
are all
this
our
is really
priorities. Like,
important.
well, what are you gonna do with it?
So
Like, I
what
don't
do
know,
you-
we made the list.
Well, I think we could do is, because we've got half the work already
And this is
done,
great.
finish
That's what the
reporting it on a ranking, and then we can move it into the mark model, because we've got numbers to base what's 1, 2, and 3, right?
And yes.
And it looks like you're already comfortable, based on this document, reporting to us quarterly.
Yeah, and I had put in there, similar to the three-tiered structure, a potential to rank versus high, medium, or low, or numerical ranking, depending on how you guys wanted to approach it. But I think in this case, with the three-tiered ranking, that's something that's easily, you know,
And as to your point, Sean,
assimilated into
it
this.
could be 4, really, yours went this way, and mine just were,
Yes,
it's
we're
very
all
much,
saying similar things, just
Yes.
in
Yeah.
different
Yeah.
formats, yeah.
which is good for the community, because not everybody in the community thinks the same way. Dan, you were raising your hand
Yeah.
first, sorry, Norma.
You guys are all getting your packets just before the meeting, so basically you're getting informed packets, I would think, of what you're doing, how we're doing it. So I mean, in that sense, she's reporting to you on what you're gonna do at the meeting.
Right.
Yeah,
So
and
you have 3 days
we've been getting them on
Wednesdays.
Well,
That was
now
a
you
big
got
goal.
5 days before the meeting.
I know.
Yep,
It's
and it's
good.
been, and the reason for that is because we wanted to be able to have Thursday, Friday, even, well, to
Well,
go
yeah.
into the office and have a
Exactly.
discussion, because Friday,
And
no,
your mayor, but the thing about it is, your mayor is your point guy.
Right.
I mean, technically, in the perfect world, which it did not work before at all. So I mean, I did go to Bill all the time. And all I did was walk in there with lists of stuff. That's all I ever did. You know, they turned it against me, but all I did was write stuff down and it was in my head. But that was not asking him to act on anything.
Mhm.
This was just ideas on paper.
Yep.
But your mayor is your point man. It should be.
You wanna do
You guys should be
your goals, and then we'll move your things over there?
because
Go
you
to your,
shouldn't be
go to your
harassing
goals.
anybody down
Cameron,
the
go do your homework.
Agreed.
You
So,
what? You
and
what?
just processing this as we finish our ranking, so the
Normally
way
I
I
haven't-
would envision this
forgot.
working next is after we set direction, right? Heather goes to her team, they outline a timeline to us. In my mind, it's by the end of the first quarter on creating their strategy. It might not be polished, and nice and pretty yet. But then we can start hearing in the department reports what the strategies are. And then we can use those individual meetings to set a little more detailed direction if necessary. It might not be necessary.
I don't disagree with you, and I think some of them might even happen sooner, because, you know, the 2023 project, and it's funny, because I lay awake and I'm thinking about weird things like signs, and how the heck are customers
sound
gonna
locks.
find the back of a store, and
Right.
does that store have a sign on the back of their store, and where are those cars gonna park when Front Street's closed? So I came to Heather the other day and said, it's been bugging me. She's like, we're already thinking about those, and
That's
so,
awesome.
so I think some of these things will happen sooner than maybe the end of the first quarter, but,
Great. Oh,
but I think,
welcome.
yeah.
Absolutely.
So we have everybody's rankings up there now? 1, 2,
So what I did, I was kinda thinking, while you guys.
You were
like
placing
like
them
Mark
under
was
Mark's
saying, there's so
prioritized.
many things
Yeah.
that should be tackled all at the same time.
Yeah.
Different groups, different,
So the ones are your highest priority
each
things.
category, or
Yeah,
top
that's
4 in category 1 and 2, and then number 4 is 3, unless there's one we need to add on there. But I think there's 11.
But but if you look at what Cameron just did, like, he picked those things and said, to me, this list of 11, and I don't mind the list of 11 when Cameron does it the way he did it.
Yep.
So to me, these things are all top-level priorities.
You could just
Yeah.
take mine.
And these are, these are really important, we need to get on them, but not number ones.
Category 2.
So actually, I like that idea when we have a list that long of doing what Cameron just did.
I mean, if we just, I don't know that we need to write it down again, I think we'd be here for hours, but I think if we get a document put together based on that, right?
But it's just like ours, 1, 2, 3.
And yours has a lot
That
of
would
that
still
in
go under category number 1.
Right.
And 3, 4, 5, or however we did it,
That's what I
would
How's she gonna
go
know
to
when you got 4 number 1s up there, which I think is great? So let's say you all pick the same 4 number 1s.
Yeah,
How's she gonna prioritize?
I think
No,
right
I-
now,
well-
I'm sorry, I think right now, most of us are in alignment based on what we're seeing with what we see in 1, 2, and 3, regardless of how it's presented. I think it's just,
Honestly, just curious.
oh, absolutely.
My thinking was that, like the DPW, I mean, we have a meeting, we call something out, and then we sit and wait. So she's not gonna wait for a month for our core borings right now, right? There's been longer than that. We've been waiting forever on those, so she's got other things to fall back on, so that would be the next number one.
Yeah.
Or one of the number
Right.
ones.
I mean, she's not working on the DPW
Yeah,
every
that's what I
single
was
day,
thinking.
we're waiting, right? But we know that getting the information for a tax review, we know that that's important, so she could work on that. When she's not working on that, she could work on, yeah. I mean, to me, that makes sense. I mean, I kind of like the idea of grouping our most important goals, our secondary goals.
Yeah, and you're gonna have them on pause. I mean, there's gonna be ones that there's gonna be a moment of pause.
And it goes back to what I was saying earlier, like,
It's-
everything's
yeah.
changing, so one day this is gonna be the top priority, the next day it's not. And you could still come back at the end of 3 months and say, yeah, we got all these figured out, or we haven't made progress on any of these, and here's why.
I think
Yeah.
that's an
And-
important part
and-
of this, is realizing that everything we're aiming for is to create a tool that's helpful, not
Right.
something that's so rigid that it binds us to.
No, that's why I
keep us
think
from
it is
achieving
important to
things. Yeah.
remember that
We can maintain
we're
flexibility.
trying to get to the shining light on the hill, right? It's not necessarily, did you get a contractor to pour that sidewalk? That's not what we're after.
No.
We're after the ultimate goal of reaching all these things
And
and
then-
having a great place to
But here's
live
another
that's.
twist to this, okay?
There's not
We
enough.
may have all these number ones, number twos, number threes, but there's a number 4 that's 4 years down the road that we need to start thinking
Ooh, I
about
like that
as
idea.
far
Yeah.
as grants and stuff like that. So all that's gotta be
That
thrown
is,
in there too.
that is key. That is
It's-
key, because the reason we're in the situation that we are today is because previous
Nobody planned
commissions,
ahead.
not because you're here, Dan, just previous commissions in general, all of this got put on us. All of it. All of it. Every single one of these dollars being spent at the number and the amount that we're
They've
spending.
been the pipeline forever.
But
And you've said that since the very beginning. You said,
And
we
it's
have to
rolled-
go.
and it's rolled downhill.
But I will
Right.
say this, it's not like that anymore.
Yeah.
And I
Yes.
think we need to
I
remember
agree.
that going forward. We are, and we're
You're-
killing it,
You're,
okay? This building is killing it right now, and I can't say that enough. I mean, there
Yeah.
are great things happening, we just have to be patient.
So, to his,
well,
I'm sorry.
but hang tight on that. I like it, but the 4-year down the road thing, we need to start planning for what needs to happen, and that's what those strategies do. So while
Mhm.
it might be number 4 on the list, it's still getting
But
work done,
no,
like
right.
Cameron's
Yeah,
saying,
yeah.
and we need to set strategy and objectives on when certain tasks will be completed, because while the bar thing might rank way low right now, there are pieces in that plan that have to happen this year.
Exactly.
No, there are, and there might be grants coming up that you never even thought of today that could pop up
Yeah,
next
that
week,
will
and you'd be
change
like,
our priority
holy
list,
cow,
yeah.
if that's gonna change what we're doing with our rec plan, then we have to jump on this now.
Mhm.
And I
I can't
think
wait.
the biggest thing is once back again to the constituents, is that they can go to the website. Norma can go to the website. It's functional, way better than it was before. And Norma says, well, I don't remember what our goals are. Well, let me see what number 1 is. What is the city hall working on? Doesn't have the minutia, doesn't have bullet points. This is what the city is focusing on right now. And I can tell my friends this is what they're working on. This is number 2. Sometimes it's number 1, but it's this constant communication of where, it's what this whole thing was for. And what
Yeah.
I agree with you. We're going forward. All of us are looking forward. Who cares? This is
And
what
I think
our-
we're all in agreement that some of these things are gonna rise and go back down, and this'll take precedence, and then this
Yeah.
will.
Agreed.
And
Agreed.
I mean, just last night on the news, I heard the state is getting ready to, unload $400 million for water infrastructure for cities, because every
Mhm.
city in Michigan is the same way, and their stuff is 50 to 70 years old.
Problem solved.
Not based on the conversation I had with Eagle last week.
Yeah.
We already had more than $800 million requests in the.
I mean, I
pipeline
thought it
for
was
3
quite funny
years.
that they thought they were
Oh
gonna
my
fix
gosh.
the entire state's
Hopefully we're up
infrastructure
on that
problem with
list,
$400 million.
being Ready,
But,
so,
so,
maybe we can ask Heather what
Do-
she's missing here on there.
I mean,
I think that does make sense to have a 4th category of future projects that we're keeping, I don't wanna say even in the back of our mind, but keeping present, but not listing them as an achievable, or it's something that we wanna keep focused on in the rear view, so that we're always cognizant of what we're doing presently is going to affect that, and also have timelines on those as to when we do need to actually start moving them up in priority.
Do we think
Yeah.
we'll gather that during the strategy sessions
Yeah, I
mainly?
think so.
Okay.
Yep.
Harvey
oh, I'm
had-
sorry, yeah, go ahead, Art.
I was just gonna say, you had 11 goals, and I agree with, the mayor there, that 165. But, like Heather shared, if you set these as time
At least it's on the radar, yeah.
I was gonna say, at least
You never heard of
we've
a
got it
Gantt
out
chart?
there.
Yeah.
Maybe he's familiar with it from his studies, but there's a Gantt chart, right? They use it in business. And it shows all of your goals and where they're at on that timeline. And then you can shift that timeline back and it becomes a wider, or it moves back. I had a feeling that's maybe what you were driving at. That,
And you guys, with 11, it sounds like this is a multi-year component. So not all of it's gonna be done in a year, but what you can do is put this as a multi-year goal.
you're probably familiar with Gantt charts.
And say, okay, we'd like to
Yeah,
achieve
I like
these
those.
and within this
Yeah.
I'll probably
timeframe,
create some for
this
digital
timeframe.
versions to share.
And at least it takes, the burden off where, as Heather puts together goals that you broadly say you want to achieve, now you can look at it over time and say, this is done, we need to adjust, and then as grants come up, then you will know when to start applying for some of those in that timeframe. But
Yep.
it at least gives some direction, say, hey, within this, because we're talking about like a 5-year strategy that we're talking about, to kind of accomplish these. Some will be coming later, but it sounds like if you look at it like that, it makes it easier and then, the citizens, us, we're pretty informed about it.
Yep, absolutely.
But that's a wonderful way to look at it, is the 5-year framework actually fits very nicely with some of our plans. Our master plans are designed purposefully so to be in 5-year increments. And similarly, our capital improvement plans will be in 5-year phased increments. So if we look at our 11 goals and just make sure we're being, I guess, keeping the achievability of each of them in mind, that we're realistic about the actual timeframes being somewhere within that 5-year period. We'll set goals for the ones that have to be done sooner than others, but obviously achieving the master plan that was a 5-year plan will likely take 5 years. And just setting those up, and then maybe having the fourth category be any project that we see 5 years, more than 5 years out of where we're currently at, and then just jumping them up in priority as we get closer.
No, I like that.
Yeah. I mean, it's unfortunate to say, but the gears of government move slowly.
They very
And
much do.
it was one of the things that drove me crazy when I first got elected. I could not figure out why we can't just make a decision and make this happen. And I was like, what in the hell are we waiting for?
Coming from business,
Well,
it
this
does
has
drive
to,
you nuts,
it's
right?
gotta go in front of this committee and that committee. We gotta figure out, it's like,
14
oh
meetings.
my God, it just.
Are there laws that preclude you from making decisions, like any
Oh, all
specific
sorts of
Yeah.
laws. Oh, yes.
Like, name one,
I have
I mean,
2 big bookshelves back there that are filled with laws that prohibit us
well
from doing
then,
things.
why even have a priority list? I mean, what laws?
Well, we have to know what to
My
work
job is
on.
to get to yes. They tell me what they want to achieve, and I say, yes, we're gonna do it, and this is how. And I'm an attorney, I navigate the law and say, this is the way, with the current regulations and restrictions upon us, we're gonna get there.
Yeah,
It's just
yeah,
not always a direct path.
No, right, so you could make, are there decisions that you can make in 2 weeks, 3 weeks? 2 months?
Just depends on the
Like,
objective.
Yeah, there's too many.
It-
Yeah,
I'm kind of
too many
buying into
variables.
Patrick's thing over here, like, you put it up there, that it's just kind of showing you how, probably when he thinks of, or anyone thinks of the meeting, it's probably what's going through his mind, is all those all at once, just kind of mashed together.
Where do you want to go from here, Mr. Mayor?
I don't know. How would you like us to clean that map up a little bit more?
Well, actually, with your guys' permission, I think what I'll do is take a picture of that, and we'll save that up there, and I will put it in a better format and present it to you guys at our February 14th meeting, and see if there's additional commentary or any adjustments that you guys want, and we'll use that as a framework moving forward, and I can use these basically reporting mechanisms that I've already incorporated. I've wanted to develop for some time some more essentially like the agile Kanban style type reporting of this is in progress, this is not. We have ways we can report that on the whiteboard with little tiles. So I'll just make it so that at every meeting there's some visual, but then there's more formal reporting and a quarterly procession from there on out.
Let me ask a question here. As Harvey was speaking, it reminded me of, the timeline thing, and it reminded me of the construction of the
Remind me
DPW
what
building,
it-
how they had it laid out.
Yeah.
The
Correct.
first 6 weeks, the second 6 weeks, and
Yeah.
4 weeks for this. But then that reminded me of the industry I spent 35 years in, and, is manufacturing, okay? And we'd have 50 jobs, and every one of them have kind of the same detail stretched out there on one spreadsheet. And I don't know if there's any kind of software that would do that, or
So
if it was
we
just an
can
Excel
do
sheet?
similar things. The biggest thing I'm gonna ask for is, and the mayor's been correcting this all along, is we just need some patience because, Commissioner Swem mentioned there's about 55 achievables, and I've reviewed those for the landfill manager. I would love to have 55 achievables, and I'm not trying to exaggerate in any way. On a daily basis, I usually have a working list of anywhere from like 250 to 320 balls up in the air, and that's not an exaggeration in the least. And those are all urgent things that need to happen at some point. So just getting all of this down will honestly, probably
huge
take a
help.
full like 2 weeks of just me doing nothing but that to get everything on there. So I'm gonna work on getting these things on there, but the breakdown is gonna take a little while longer.
I'm just curious.
Because there's so much we do as a city that most people don't realize. There's so much more behind the scenes.
I just wanted to, I mean, seriously, Norma or Dan or Ralph or any of you,
Yeah.
is there anything that you think
Right.
we're missing?
You have impressed me so much by talking to each other.
Well,
Amen,
that's good to
Norma.
hear. Thank you.
Before, there was always looking at the front, the fence, we've got to do this, yes, 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 yes. Talk to each other. I know you don't
Yeah.
get information.
There was a loud guy in there. Yeah, well, thank you, Norma. I think that's one of the point of prides that many of us have expressed over this last couple years, for some of us in the last couple months, for others, that our number one responsibility is to the community and to do what we know is right for everybody, not just one group of people, not just one thing, not one entity, is that our responsibility is to you, and that's, I believe, what every commissioner up here is doing.
I'm
I
really,
just wanna say something to Norma too. Norma was the only one that showed up for meetings for 6 months. So when you guys complained about having 5 people in here, it was only Norma.
Thank you, Norma.
6 months I was commissioner.
yeah.
Ralph, is there anything you're thinking of that?
The only thing I might add would be efficiency, and that's in all departments. I know some of those items up there kind of cover that in general, but I think efficiency could be maybe something to look at.
I don't disagree.
Spending, services, tax revenue.
And I think, and I'm not,
Right, the best bang for our buck, right?
right, no, I totally agree with you, and I can optimistically say that I think that we're headed in the right direction, that I think we've already made improvement in that area. And I think we have the right people who know that that needs to be done. And no, I get it, and I'm not trying to step on anybody that used to be here, but I think that we have a much better group who's focused on being more efficient for the city. That's I honestly believe that.
Yep.
I'm really looking forward to what these department leaders are gonna work with you on and understand where their goals are at. Cause we might not be thinking of it yet.
Well, and
But
that's
they
why
are-
it's
they're
gonna be
in it.
great that this is a flexible tool and we can adjust as we go, and just everyone knows that's the expectations. We're gonna adjust it continually. And one of the things I mentioned, continuous improvement, I think everyone agrees with that, but just remembering that continuous improvement means flexibility at all times. You have to be willing to change. Just because something was priority doesn't mean that's tried and true, has to be stuck to. We have to adjust and be flexible as we move along.
Agreed.
And then just to put on it, just so you know, there's time on the account for the end of the contract.
Okay.
If not, then we just put it back where it was and then go from there. But we have at least, I think, 4 weeks at least.
Okay, cool.
And there's another annuity after that though available, right?
I'm sorry?
There'll be another annuity after that
After
available.
4 weeks?
Yeah, this isn't like a one-time special deal or anything, is that what you're saying?
No, but I'd probably be a little, not apprehensive, but take my time suggesting that. I mean, if I can do at least something good in there instead of something absolutely fantastic, you know, just kind of have to.
Right.
Is that directly related to the current situation, regardless of what it is? This is because it seems,
Yes, yeah,
it just happens to be available and you know that based on your experience, it's, okay.
yes, and maybe that context helps too.
It does help.
So yeah, it's not just, hey, you know, I just kind of parachuted in.
Do you live here?
I live
I'm
in
sorry.
Kalamazoo, but
Are-
my offices.
But for
Are you comfortable publicly saying what you would get out of this deal?
It depends. I mean, I could say I'm comfortable with it, yes, but it depends on how it's structured, on how, you wanna know how I get paid.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we can look at the different structures there, I think. best way that I have for you guys to get paid is, it's not necessarily the best way I get paid, but that's okay.
Yeah.
Right.
See, and that is helpful. So it does put context to, I think, some of our concerns. I think it absolutely does help.
Well, you wanna know, you know, in anything that you do, in anything good that is to be made, and this is a very philosophical thing, but there's always conflict of interest in anything that you do. Even when you have, like, you hear in the financial planning world, well, it's a fiduciary account. There's no conflict of interest. That is so not true. There's conflict of interest anywhere. I mean, it comes to the walls, conflict of interest does. Conflict of interest, of course, is not a bad thing. It's a tool. You just need to make sure that you utilize it properly and not abuse it.
Okay. We'll
Thanks,
keep
Tim.
mulling that one over. Are we all comfortable then with getting the goal, having her get back with us on
Clean it
how
up.
she's gonna tackle that and
Mhm.
cleaning that up for us?
And I think you'll even find that, during that engaging conversation with these type of structure, that they could be seeing things that we don't even see, and that's
No,
the whole
agreed.
purpose of it.
Agreed.
I wanna know what they know. What do you know that I don't, that maybe we're prioritizing in the wrong spot? Or it needs to move up.
Agreed.
It needs to move over. It needs to,
No, I
So-
agree. And I think this was a really constructive meeting, and I think these kind of conversations need to keep happening, and
And I know didn't avoid your question with the amount.
it doesn't
There's a lot
matter,
of context
really. Thank you.
that's okay.
I guess I'm gonna, if we're all done with our goals, do you guys have any more comments or questions about goals right now?
I'm good.
You're good? Do we have any communications?
I have not received any communications for this evening.
Okay. I'll open it up for public comment. If you'd like to make a public comment, please make your way to the front. State your name for the minutes.
Oh, don't tempt her.
Well, thank you for coming, Norma, and I appreciate your
And
input.
Dan.
I really do.
And Ralph,
Dan and
It's appreciated.
don't forget Dan.
Okay, then we'll move on to city manager comments.
I just want to emphasize how appreciative I am of you guys taking the commitment to come here this evening. I know special meetings are time away from your family and your other ventures, and this was beneficial to me, and I think it'll be beneficial for the city as a whole. And similarly to the public comment, for those who showed up this evening, your comments are vital and very helpful. Thank you, Norma. Thank you, Ralph. Thank you, Dan. Thank you for those who participate. And I want you guys to have a wonderful evening and know that you've contributed to our lovely community we all love, so thank you.
Great. Commissioner Wheaton, you have any
I'll
comments?
second that one.
Commissioner Swin?
No, just thank you to the commission. It's a lot to tackle tonight, a lot of different opinions, a lot of different ideas. Good work.
Commissioner Downey?
On to you. Welcome, Courtney. It's good to have you on board. First night here.
Yeah.
You got a good
2.5 hours in, she picked the right
Keep
one.
an eye on her, don't let her run back to Lincoln Township.
Yeah.
Chief, I think you're doing a great job. I think I may know who your replacement is gonna be, but, oh, yeah. I
That's it exactly.
Look forward
That's it
to
exactly. That's it exactly.
this whole new little regime that we have. But I know it's gonna be a good thing. I say, I know the boys. I just want to reiterate, thanks to this commission, for what you're doing up here. I'm proud to be a part of it.
Absolutely.
I think each and every one of you are doing a great job. I just can't say that often enough. Everybody likes to get a pat on the back, but
Back at you, Larry.
I appreciate working here with all of these great gentlemen and this staff. So thank you, and thank you to everybody that showed up.
Yeah, not before the meeting.
Ditto from me. I just thank you to everybody. Thanks for the people that did come tonight. Appreciate your input. Really appreciate this conversation. I think this is what's painfully and vitally lacking from our state and federal governments, is the ability to communicate clearly without name calling or just walking away. So I really appreciate these conversations. I think they're hugely beneficial to the community, and I hope that we can continue to have fruitful conversations on difficult subjects.
Yeah.
That being said, I will take a motion to adjourn.
I'll make said motion.
I'll support.
Thank you. May I have roll call, please?
Dennison,
Yes.
Whedon,
Yes.
Downey,
Yes.
Money,
So this
Yes.
is interesting.
Swem,
Yes.
Great.
you're adjourned.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to reading that.
That was great. Thanks, Heather. I know you just got to sit on the sign and watch us.
Hey,
Does this have?
I was gonna say,
Yeah.
I thought you were out of
2022
uniform.
dialogue.
You had some stripes on.
Sometimes I think, you know,